All right, just a little housekeeping note here. Councilmember Beckstrom is off-site in a public facility, but she is online. So all votes will be done via a roll call this evening. And secondly, since we do have a packed house, we're gonna please ask you if you have a phone to make sure that it's turned off, muted, and that we keep side discussions to a minimum so that we can listen to the people that have the floor. Thank you. All right, so the second item of business is the approval of the agenda for this evening's meeting. I am going to request that we move item number 6 and item number 10 to the regular agenda item, putting them at what would be ostensibly 23 and 24. That's acceptable for
Second.
everyone. Thank you. Anybody else have any changes?
No.
No? All right, I'll take a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
So moved?
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Hearn. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Oh, there's my first mistake. Roll call vote. Councilmember Beckstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember Hearn.
Aye.
Councilmember Dragisich.
Aye.
Councilmember Holtz.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Agenda is approved as amended.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
we're sorry to interject. Kramer Lake, item number 21, would like their item removed from consideration. They have withdrawn their application at this period,
Okay.
and the applicant is not here, that's correct?
Yeah, correct. Council,
Yeah.
Mayor, Council, the applicant is not here this evening, Mayor and
All
Council.
right.
Move to reconsider previous motion.
Support?
Then we have to vote on that.
Yeah, so we'll have to vote on that. Councilmember Beckstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember Dragisich.
Aye.
Councilmember Holtz.
Yep.
Councilmember Hearn.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. I'll take into consideration a motion to accept the newly amended agenda with 23, 24 moving from consent agenda and item number 21 being, or items number 6 and 10 from the consent agenda and item number 21 being removed from the regular agenda.
So moved.
Support?
We have a motion and a second. Councilmember Beckstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember Dragisich.
Aye.
Councilmember Holtz.
Aye.
Councilmember Hearn.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Now the agenda is approved. Thank you very much. Then we move on to approval of the minutes for the April 6, 2024 workshop and special meetings and the April 16th, 2024 council meeting. I did have one correction on the April 16th. Was that?
I did make the correction and swapped it out in the Google Drive.
All right, thank you. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the aforementioned meetings.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I'll call the question. Councilmember Beckstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember Dragisich.
Aye.
Councilmember Holtz.
Aye.
Councilmember Hearn.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Minutes are hereby approved. Item number D is we have public comments and inquiries, and we have a couple people that would like to speak this evening. I'll call your name. You can come to the podium. These are for people that don't have anything to say on something that's on the agenda this evening. You'll have 6 minutes, and a minute before the 6 minutes is up, I might give you a little reminder that you're down to a minute. The first speaker would be Reverend Paul Fitzpatrick. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Honorable Mayor Catonhead, members of the Lake Elmo City Council. My name is Reverend Paul Fitzpatrick, and I reside at 11066 39th Street North here in Lake Elmo, right across the street from where we sit. I wish to speak again so the leaders of Lake Elmo take serious the concerns of residents from Lake Elmo on the issue of pedestrian safety. As I travel around Lake Elmo, I see signs of progress and growth. On many newer streets near businesses, intersections are marked with white lines indicating pedestrian crossings. Clearly a good thing. Although reality shows us that just the painted white lines, without common sense and without common concern for neighbors, does not make it a safer intersection. Merely seeing the white lines without using one's brain makes pedestrian safety a much more difficult task. The first time I spoke to this august body, I urged the council to be part of pedestrian safety, not in major ways like traffic lights or large flashing signs that cost thousands of dollars, but in a simple common sense way. I again entreat this body to work toward painting simple crosswalk signage at 39th Street and Laverne Avenue quickly. Simple signage, combined with common sense, can make those two crossings one that gives pedestrians confidence while crossing the street at Lake Elmo, especially when we exercise our greatest, most precious responsibility to come across the street to vote. As Lake Elmo continues to grow, simple things ingrained in people's minds can move drivers trained in safety to be alert to their neighbors and to be active in pedestrian safety so no one hears the cry of too little, too late when someone is injured or worse. Since I was the first of the residents from the fields at Arbor Glen to speak about this to City Council, I have been approached by concerned citizens that I should start a petition drive so that there's not merely one or two complaints that cross the desk of who's ever responsible for care for our city streets, but hundreds of letters if a petition is not heeded. I prefer to contact people individually so my fellow seniors and others can overwhelm that mailbox that is currently simply almost empty every day concerning this safety issue. Then some concerned citizens watching the work you chief stewards of Lake Elmo are doing, perhaps they will also share their concerns with you verbally. I guess having a full mailbox for my neighbors would serve a better purpose than just an almost empty one. I trust that you will listen to your neighbors and my neighbors and be partners with them concerning the issue of pedestrian safety quickly. I am certain that you are working through this situation and that you are concerned and engaged. From someone who is also concerned, please find this solution sooner. I thank you for your time and your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick. Next up on the public comments is Colleen Swedberg.
Good evening, everyone. As he said, my name's Colleen Swedberg. I live at 6165 Upper 44th Street North in Oakdale. Yes, the enemy, yeah. But I'm here to remind people or invite you, because I was here quite a while ago, to the landscape revival event that's happening at Rock Point Church on June 1st from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. and it's off of Highway 36 in Keats. And we like to say that it's more than a plant sale because we have 13 exhibitors that attend that help teach and educate people of how to have a rain garden, how to have a pollinator garden. So it's much bigger than just a plant sale. Then we have 8 growers from around Minnesota and Wisconsin going to be showing up there. That's the most we've ever had at this event. So it's a great opportunity to learn and buy these plants. And we also have a vendor who does wonderful signage for your yard and for your gardens to put in there. She does a wonderful job. And if that doesn't get you, we have a food truck. You know, if that, that's got to be the topping on the icing. So anyway, I just want to remind people, I'm going to leave these postcards at the back there for people to pick up. And if you can't make it tonight, if you're not here tonight, there'll be more. Julie has more to hand out. So anyway, once again, June 1st from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Rock Point Church off of Highway 36 in Keats. Hope to see you guys there.
Thank you, Ms. Swedberg. All right, item E on the agenda are presentations. We do have an employee that is retiring from the city of Lake Elmo. I'll let Public Works Director Marty Powers present on that.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The City of Lake Elmo would like to recognize Public Works Operator Jim Sachs tonight for his 19 years of service. Jim has been a key asset in the department with his knowledge with the sewer and water. He's going to be tough to replace. He has historical knowledge, experience, and skills. He's been a great snowplow driver, proficient when handling a skid steer. He often watched the water system and would identify changes in it before we had issues, so we had time to correct. So that is going to be a big loss for our department. He was always one of the first ones to arrive at Public Works in the morning. Many times he would beat me, so he's very reliable and always ready for action. Staff has enjoyed working with Jim and wishes him the best of luck in retirement. Again, we would like to acknowledge Jim's retirement, the value, dedication, and efforts he has added in Public Works Department, and he will be missed. Let's take a picture.
Councilmember Baxter, you can't be in the picture.
All right. One more. All smiles. Thank you.
We're all certainly thankful of our city employees that do such a great job at keeping our roads and streets clean and things working and plowing in the winter when they need to, so we can get around safely. Item number B, underneath presentations, we have a donation from Lake Elmo Rotary and the St. John's Masonic Lodge.
Mayor and City Council, tonight we accept the donation of a new fire suppression tool, FST, from the St. John's Masonic Lodge and funding provided by the Lake Elmo Rotary. With me tonight I've got Matthew Stepniak from the St. John's Masonic Lodge and President Tammy Malmquist from the Rotary Club. Without the Rotary Club's funding, we wouldn't have these tools. This device will be in my vehicle and our Assistant Chief vehicle, and as they also provided dollars for our Washington County Sheriff's Squad. These early suppression tools are another kind of tool in our vast firefighting toolbox, and appreciate the fundraising efforts of these groups to bring these tools to our city. So with that, I'll turn it over to Matthew to kind of explain what the program is and the impact they've already made in Minnesota, and especially Washington County.
Thank you, Chief. Mayor, councilpersons, residents of Lake Elmo. Thank you for having me. Once again, my name is Matthew Stepniak with St. John's Masonic Lodge No. 1 in Stillwater, Minnesota. It is our honor on behalf of Lake Elmo Rotary, who provided us the funds, in partnership with Minnesota Masonic Charities and the Grand Lodge of Minnesota, to bring a new tech, first generation fire suppression tool to provide to our first responders to make your city and our county safer. This is the 30th, 31st, and 32nd fire suppression tool that we have donated to Washington County, to individual cities, and to the Washington County Sheriff's Department. And without our partners like the Lake Elmo Rotary helping us to make our county safer, we couldn't be here standing before you. And we are proud to be in partnership with our first responders to make our communities safer. Thank you very much, everyone.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Right.
I was just getting ready. Prepping. Okay. Absolutely. Yeah. Mind your way. Oh, you wanted to get one? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, item C is, we're gonna introduce our incoming city administrator. I'll let interim administrator take over from here.
Council, Mayor, citizens of Lake Elmo, we've gone through a long process ever since December of this year. We hired a search firm, went through numerous candidates. We had 25 people apply for this job. Council members, department heads interviewed the candidates. We did a thorough investigation with our search firm. And Miss Nicole Miller is our candidate of choice, and we are so looking forward to having her join the city. Her first day will be on June 3rd. And I've invited her today to introduce herself to the staff and to the citizens of Lake Elmo and explain a little bit about herself.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I'm looking forward to working with you all, and I appreciate being able to come here and share a little bit more about myself with you, as well as staff that I haven't met and the community as well. So I reside in the city of Wyoming with my husband and 3 children who have decided to attend tonight's meeting, sitting in the back there. The last 9 years I've spent working for a full-service city named St. Anthony. I've had the opportunity over the years to work across all departments, recently focusing in the areas of strategic planning, community development, communications, and sustainability. The reason why Lake Elmo was appealing to me is I grew up in the East Metro, as well as I was looking for an opportunity where I felt that I could be successful with my skills matching what your community was looking for. I'm looking forward to supporting the council's goals and being part of the strategic planning process, as well as working with your skilled staff. I would describe myself as a collaborator and kind of a measured leader that appreciates collecting information and then finding out how people feel about it and then exploring the options before making a decision. I'm looking forward to, in the first few months, definitely listening and learning about the operations and projects that are going on in the community, and meeting with stakeholders and community members as well. And I'm just looking forward to helping the city move in a positive direction too. So thank you for having me here tonight, and I look forward to watching the rest of the meeting.
Great, thanks. You sure we can't get that start date like 2 weeks earlier?
Yeah,
I
I
can go
know,
back
I know.
home.
Clark would appreciate
No,
that.
thank you for introducing yourself.
Yeah,
Really
thank you.
appreciate it, and we look forward to working with you as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, if I could get a volunteer to go through the consent agenda, I surely would appreciate it.
I can do that.
Thank you.
Item 2, approve payment of disbursements. 3, approve pay request number 15 for water tower number 3. 4, approve Royal Golf 6th Edition Development Agreement Resolution 2024-048. 5, approve facility use agreement with Focus Engineering. 7, approve bids and an award contract for the 30th Street North Gap Segment Improvements, Resolution 2024-050. 8, approve Demontreville Park Playground upgrades. 9, accept donation of fire suppression equipment from Lake Elmo Rotary and St. John's Masonic Lodge, Resolution 2024-047. 11, approve interim administrator contract extension. 12, approve reimbursement resolution, Resolution 2024-056. 13, approve cable caster pay rate. 14, approve updated annual leave policy. 15, approve ARPA resolution, Resolution 2024-057.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
So moved.
Support.
All right, so we have a motion and a second for the consent agenda. I'll have to do a roll call vote on this. Councilmember Beckstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember Dragisich,
Aye.
Councilmember Holtz,
Aye.
Councilmember Hearn.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Consent agenda is hereby approved. Thank you. Getting into the regular agenda. Number 16 is approved resolution of municipal support for Trunk Highway 36 and Lake Elmo Avenue, CASA 17 interchange project, resolution 2024-051. And we have Mr. Andrew Geeson from Washington County to present to us today.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Andrew Geeson. I'm a project manager at Washington County. Today, I will be providing an update and seeking a resolution of support on the Highway 36 and Lake Elmo Avenue intersection improvement project. So during my presentation, I will provide an overview of the project need and schedule, recap engagement activities, provide an overview of the preferred design layout, and close by requesting a resolution of support and discussing next steps. So as everyone in this room likely knows, this intersection has an extensive crash history with about one crash seen here every 2 weeks. So looking at some other intersections along Highway 36 within city of Lake Elmo, Demontreville Trail, the intersection of Demontreville Trail and 36, over the last 10 years, there's been 21 recorded crashes at that intersection. At Keats Avenue, there's been 46 recorded crashes. And then at Lake Elmo Avenue, there's been 173 recorded crashes. So that really shows kind of that extensive crash history at this intersection and why we're currently prioritizing improvements here. In addition, since the opening of the Highway 36 St. Croix River crossing in 2017, traffic volumes on 36 have continued to increase, which leads to increased congestion and delays seen at this intersection. Here you will see a very high-level schedule of how we go from a partial project funding award in 2020 to construction in 2026. We are currently finalizing the intersection study and environmental documentation phase. Final engineering is anticipated to begin shortly and will be completed in 2025. Any necessary property would then be acquired, and we expect that construction of this project will last 2 full construction seasons, kicking off in the spring of 2026 and wrapping up in the fall of 2027. So moving on to the engagement efforts for this project, to date, we've completed 5 formal engagement events, including an elected official goal-setting meeting, an online comment period for the purpose and need statement, and 3 public open houses. First event was an elected official goal-setting meeting that brought together policymakers from the City of Lake Elmo, City of Grant, Washington County, and MnDOT. And this meeting gave us a great understanding of the City of Lake Elmo's desired outcomes, priorities, and concerns related to this project. We then went through a series of public open houses that were available both in person and online. These open houses were well attended and was a great way to gather feedback from the public on the project. In addition to the open houses, we held numerous one-on-one meetings with adjacent business and property owners near this intersection. And then these engagement activities occurred over a roughly 2-year period, concurrently with the alternative evaluation process to help gather key input from the community to help determine and shape the preferred design layout. So based off a combination of input from the public, feedback from our project partners, and our technical analysis, the preferred design includes a grade-separated interchange with button hook style ramps. This design eliminates the existing at-grade stoplight on 36, making a significant safety improvement here while minimizing project costs, minimizing the amount of necessary private property acquisition, and minimizing the overall project footprint. In addition, this layout is designed to not preclude adding tight diamond-style ramps in the long-range horizon, looking at 40-plus years from now, and we do that by preserving right-of-way and ensuring that the bridge is designed to accommodate future conditions. So to close, we are seeking a resolution from the City of Lake Elmo that supports the preferred layout and supports the county moving forward with the development of final plans and right-of-way acquisitions necessary for the construction of the preferred layout. And if the city approves this resolution, next steps are to complete the environmental documents and attain any necessary permits, complete property acquisition, complete final design, and attain a signature from the city engineer on the final plan title sheet, execute a cost and maintenance agreement with the city, open bids, and then receive city concurrence on a low bid to ensure that construction can begin in 2026. With that, I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Geeson? Councilmember Holtz?
Thank you for that presentation. Fully agreed. Obviously, this is about public safety. I'm curious, it is secondary to it, but some of our concern has been its compatibility with future upgrades. And I know conversations have been occurring consistently regarding the future possibility for what's happening with Keats. And I'm just wondering if you could let the public know, as well as our audience, what those conversations have been with the state, because I have not been privy to those, but I've been made aware somewhat. But just as to where things are at and the potential for if this is compatible with a frontage road.
Yeah, Mayor, council member, something that MnDOT is looking at is potentially looking at extending that new frontage road on the south side of 36. So as part of this project, we are adding a new frontage road on the south side. You can kind of see that in that preferred design. But something that MnDOT is considering is actually extending that frontage road to make a connection to Keats Avenue. They're very early in that design process, so there's a number of different alternatives that they're considering. But as part of our analysis, we looked at, what would happen if that extension is made and Keats Avenue is closed? How would that impact the intersections as part of our project? So we've done that analysis, and the level of service at this south ramp intersection would still be a level of service A on kind of a letter scale. So we are kind of planning for that future closure potential closure in the future. And we're confident that our design can accommodate that future traffic.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Huh? All right.
I've got a question, Mayor.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, I can't see you. So thank you for
Sorry.
speaking up, Councilmember Beckstrom.
Sure. So quick question. So I know when we reviewed the preliminary plans, I don't know, a couple months ago, I mean, the button hook was not our preferred approach, mainly because of the loss. One of the reasons was one of the loss of land on the Lake Elmo side of 36. And so since the button hook was brought to council, has anything changed with that? Are we still looking at a loss of that land to put in, the holding ponds and the loss of the church there?
Yeah, Mayor, council member, the design that we presented about 2 months ago was pretty similar to this design that we're presenting today. Most of the property impacts on the south side of 36 is with that addition of that new frontage road. And then between that frontage road and Highway 36, kind of that purple and that blue shaded areas would be proposed stormwater basins. So the additional right-of-way or property that we would have to acquire as part of this design is really to accommodate that new frontage road on the south side of 36.
So just a follow-up question, that in the other designs, was there the same amount of loss of right-of-way with the, what is it, the type diamond or some of the other models? I don't recall if it was the same loss of right-of-way or this model just has more.
Yeah, Mayor, council member, so maybe going back to January, there was 3 different alternatives that we were still considering. There was this design, and then there was 2 designs that were a tight diamond style interchange. Both of those type diamond style interchanges has similar property impacts on the south side of 36. But then when you actually looked on the north side of 36, there was a significant increase in property required with that. So overall, once we got down to 3 remaining alternatives, this is the alternative that had the least amount of property impacts. It was similar on the south side, but then more for some of those other alternatives we were considering on the north side.
Thank you.
Would it be correct to say that due to the reservation of additional right-of-way for an intersection that might be developed in 40 years, we're also increasing some of the property at this point?
Yeah, Administrator, I mean, if you overlaid the footprint of that tight diamond versus what we have for the button hook, that tight diamond fits within the footprint on the south side. So we're not actually increasing kind of the right-of-way to get those tight diamond style ramps within that footprint.
Thank you.
All right. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve resolution number 2024-051, approving municipal support for Trunk Highway 36 and County Highway 17 Lake Elmo Avenue interchange project.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Holtz, a second by Councilmember Hearn. Discussion. Councilmember Holtz.
I just want to say I appreciate the collaborative relationship with the county that we have, and obviously this is grant as well. This requires both of our support. But at the end of the day, it's about safety of our residents, of their residents, of everyone who's using this. So it's not my preferred one to begin with, but it also was it serves the purpose of safety, and that is the first priority for government. So I fully support it.
Any other discussion?
I'm just going to echo that. Of course, there's cons to any design, but I just, going back to the 173 crashes, 1 per 2 weeks, the pros far outweigh the cons on this one. I'm excited for this to get moving forward.
Councilmember Beckstrom, anything?
No comment.
Okay. I will say that, I was very impressed with Washington County at getting the cities together and the affected parties to have discussion about what the key elements, the goals, Obviously, safety being priority number one. Access for the residents to get onto the highway. I was a proponent of the tight diamond and Washington County. We had some questions, and to their credit, were really good about looking at the future impacts of what the button hooks do with regards to future traffic impacts of both east and westbound, 36 getting off and on, and then extending into, had some concerns what MnDOT would do with Keats Avenue and how that would impact the button hooks on the south side. And they got a meeting together with MnDOT, and we discussed that. They looked at the future traffic patterns and really showed that the level of service does not go down with that change. And so really the leadership from their county engineer, Wayne Sandberg, all the way down through project manager Geeson, my hat's off to them and being very forthright and cooperative and getting information. I'm excited to see this project start. I don't think everybody's gonna have a fun time while it's in construction, but we'll all be happy when it's done. So with that, I'm gonna call the question. I'm going to call on Councilmember Beckstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember Dragisich,
Aye.
Councilmember Holtz,
Aye.
Councilmember Hearn.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Item number 17, 2024 bonding, resolution 2024-061.
Sorry. Thank you, Mayor. I am going to pass this right off to our municipal bond advisor, Tammy Umdahl of Northland Securities.
Good evening. Excuse me, Mayor, City Council members, Tammy Umdahl with Northland Public Finance to present on this item. You have before you a resolution calling for the sale of the Series 2024 A bonds in the approximate amount of $5.2 million. The bonds are being issued to finance street and utility improvements that the city is preparing for. With respect to the estimated interest rate on the bonds, and it is estimated because these bonds will be sold through a competitive sale process taking bids, and that will not happen until June. But the estimated rate at 3.65%, that may be less, that may be more, depending on where the market is at the time of sale. We are recommending, as the city has in the past with your general obligation bonds of this size, that the city request a rating. Moody's currently has ratings on the city's outstanding bonds at the AA1. So as part of that process, staff will be going through a rating call here in the next few weeks. And at the meeting where I will be presenting the final bids, I will have information on the rating from Moody's, and we would expect that to be affirmed at the AA1. The bonds will be tax exempt because of the purpose of the issuance. And the sale date is June 4th in the morning, and that evening you will have a resolution considering award of the sale of the bonds. With that, I know you've been talking about the project for a number of months. I would be happy, Mayor, City Council, to take any questions that you may have for me. Thank you.
Questions for Ms. Omdahl? All right. If there aren't any questions, I'll certainly entertain a motion.
Motion to approve resolution number 2024-061, a resolution providing for the competitive negotiated sale of $5,230,000 general obligation improvement and water revenue bonds, Series 2024A.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Councilmember Holtz.
I just want to mention for those watching, like, we didn't just randomly say, let's do 5.2 million. Hey, this is an ongoing discussion about things that have been approved over the last year. So so you're not, don't worry about that. Like, this is not just a random thing, but this is, it's been throughout the year where this has been a process. And as Tammy has mentioned, this is for our streets. And it's a very critical tool to be able to use this. So looking forward to seeing what the sale does, but definitely appreciate having that AA1 rating too.
Okay, anyone else?
And actually, Mayor, just for clarification, the sale of these bonds, if approved by the city council, will be at 10 o'clock on June 4th, and we'll be basically accepting those at 7 PM. Would there be a correct statement?
Mayor, council members, Northland, on behalf of the city, in the morning of that date, and get the date right, June 4th, will accept those bids. That evening, there will be a resolution before the city council at your regular city council meeting to consider the award and sale of those bonds.
Thank you.
All right, without any further ado, I'll continue with the roll call vote. Councilmember Beckstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember Dragisich,
Aye.
Councilmember Holtz,
Aye.
Councilmember Hearn.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Motion passes 5-0. Okay, next we,
Mr. Mayor. Mayor.
Motion to approve the
Oh,
municipal
there's a second
services
motion.
agreement with Northland Securities, Inc.
and we need that one.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Gonna simply go on to roll call vote. Councilmember Beckstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember Dragisich,
Aye.
Councilmember Holtz,
Aye.
Councilmember Hearn,
Aye.
myself is an aye as well. Motion to approve municipal services agreement with Northland Securities passes 5-0. All right. Moving on to item number 18, Birth and Haven zoning text amendment and comprehensive plan amendment or ordinance 2024-09, resolution 2024-054, and resolution 2024-055.
Thank you, Mayor. The applicant for tonight's application is Melvin Ashford with Minnesota Women's Care. The property is comprised of 3 PIDs just north of Clear Lake at 5193 Keats Avenue. The property is currently zoned agricultural with a shoreland overlay and guided in the city's comp plan as ag preserve. The requests before you tonight are twofold. The first is to amend the city's comprehensive plan and re-guide the parcel from ag preserve to rural area development. And then the applicant is requesting to amend city code to include birth center and postpartum retreat center in the city's ordinances. If these are approved, the applicant would then need to come forward with a conditional use permit. At that time, they'd have more detailed plans. This is also when the city can add conditions of approval to the CUP to mitigate any potential concerns or nuisances. Diving into the comprehensive plan amendment request, the property again is currently zoned or guided ag preserve. The agricultural preserve program is a future land use category reserved for properties with agreements in place that preserve land from development and non-ag uses. The agricultural preserve program for this property was terminated in 2021. Since there's no contract in place, the new future land use designation should be rural area development, RAD, to be consistent with the surrounding rural areas and existing zoning district. While most development in this land classified as RAD is residential in nature, we do have non-residential uses, both agricultural and non-agricultural. Some examples of those are wedding venues, bed and breakfasts, gun clubs, mines, outdoor storage, and then we have some ag sales and business uses as well. So a visual of the comprehensive plan amendment request, essentially the green hatching would be removed, which is ag preserve, and then the green color would show through, which is rural area development. And then again, I do want to point out that this is just for the guidance of the land. The zoning would remain agricultural. So the second part of the applicant's request is to add birth center and postpartum retreat center to city code. Staff has reviewed the request and made further amendments as best as we could to fit the applicant's request in the zoning district they're proposing. So the first change is to definitions. We would be proposing to add birth center into the definitions. This definition is from state statute. Staff is also recommending adding birth centers under medical facilities for urban districts. And then we revised postpartum retreat center to transitional care facility, and that definition is comprised from other cities that had a similar use. Moving on to the second change is to table 9-1, which is the uses. So we'd be adding birth center and transitional care facility as primary conditional uses. The third part of the amendments is to parking standards for transitional care. I do want to note that birth center parking would be handled under the performance standards for rural districts, and then medical facilities for urban. The fourth change is regarding performance standards. That's kind of the meat of the request. So again, staff amended these a little bit beyond what the applicant had proposed to try to mimic some of those non-ag low-impact standards and best fit it to the ag district, which the applicant is requesting. So I'll just break these down a little bit. So birth center, the first requirement would be that they are licensed. And then if established in a rural district, so we'd be breaking it out, birth centers would be the only medical facility in this district. They would be waived from the arterial or collector street requirement. They would be limited to 4 rooms and 3 parking stalls per room. And then we included standards regarding screening, impervious surface, and buffers. And then transitional care facility is broken out in a similar way. The first 2 are related to the use as a whole, and that would be that the underlying acreage is met and regulating the size of rooms to 10. And then again, if broken out in a rural district, we have similar standards for screening, impervious surface, and buffers. And then I do want to point out that we note 2 principal structures would be allowed, and that would be 1 birth center and 1 transitional care facility, which would be 2 primary buildings. So zoning text amendments and comprehensive plan amendments are legislative decisions where the city has the most authority in decision-making. The comp plan amendment is site-specific, but the zoning text amendment is for all agricultural properties, and agricultural properties are the dark green in the zoning map. Staff has 4 findings and 1 condition of approval for the comprehensive plan amendment request. In short, the first one is that the process was followed. The second is outlining what the comprehensive plan amendment is for, which is ag preserve to rural area development. The third is outlining that the property is not currently enrolled in an agricultural preserve agreement. And fourth is that the request is consistent with the comprehensive plan. And then the condition of approval would be that Met Council would also be approving this request. The zoning text amendment, staff has 2 findings and no conditions. So the city must find the proposed uses are consistent with the agricultural zoning district and consistent with the land use definition and the comprehensive plan. This application was sent out for agency review on March 1st. We received comments from the watershed district that no permit is required at this time, but they would want to review the project if it moves forward. The fire department did not provide comments, but they would also want to review the project moving forward, similar with the city engineer, and the DNR did not provide comments. So a public hearing was sent to surrounding property owners within 350 feet on February 28th and published in the local paper, which is the Stillwater Gazette, on March 1st. Staff received 29 comments in opposition of the request between the public hearing and outside of the public hearing. In general, those were related to traffic, speeding, access to Highway 36, nuisances related to light and noise, environmental and wildlife concerns, septic capacity and hazardous waste, inconsistency with the comp plan and rural district, concerns with future expansion, water, and crime. The Planning Commission reviewed this request on March 11th. The Planning Commission voted to recommend approval of the comprehensive plan amendment. That motion did fail. The commission felt that it wasn't necessary to make the change at this time. And then they voted to recommend approval of the zoning text amendment, and that did pass. So in essence, what the Planning Commission recommendations are is somebody could do a birth center in an ag district, just not on this parcel. And then I do have 3 recommended motions before you tonight, and I would advise that we hear from the applicant prior to taking any questions.
All right. Would the applicant like to speak? Please state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Melvin Ashford. I'm the founder of...
Please speak into the microphone.
Mr. Mayor, council members, good evening. My name is Melvin Ashford. I'm the owner of Minnesota Women's Care. We have Aaron Beer, who's director spearheading our projects for looking for a birth center, and then Elise Ruprecht, who's our practice manager for the office. We've looked for, move this one over to, okay, I'm sorry. We've looked for birth center location for almost 3 years. Our goal was to look for an area that was more rural in nature, out in the country, to give you a more natural feeling. Most birth centers, I don't know how much you all are aware of birth centers, but birth centers are not necessarily medical facilities. In fact, in order to be certified as a birth center, you have to do everything kind of opposite of what a hospital would do. Most of them are based in residential homes. You can't do a lot of interventions that you could do in a hospital. It's meant to mimic the natural experience of birth. There are quite a few of them in Minnesota. Majority of them are in St. Paul and Minneapolis, in old residential homes in that area. And what we wanted to do is to provide the birth center experience, but to take it a step further and to make it feel more natural, to feel like you're in nature. And so this property on Keats Avenue spoke to us. It's a beautiful piece of land. We're not looking to come in and turn it into a hospital or a medical facility. We're looking to maintain the current nature of the land. In fact, our birth center is going to be built within the existing home that's already on the property. The postpartum facility that we talked about, the transitional care, is just going to be a spot to help women who are having difficulty recovering from deliveries, give them more supportive care, give them more time, rest in a nice environment. That building is going to be 7,000 square feet, so about the size of a home, but in the same footprint of the there's 3 current buildings right there in that area. There's 3 barns. So this will kind of be in the footprint of those existing structures. We want to try to minimize the impact by using all the existing footprint as much as possible. And I believe we've provided you all a rendering of what we're hoping to do. We did have a meeting with the members of the community on April 24th. There was a lot of, it's a very emotional, charged meeting with a lot of concerns, and I understand that. But I hope that one thing I wanted the community to understand and this body to understand is that our goal is to try to make our footprint as little as possible and improve and make the land more beautiful, not to take away from any of the current environmental standards that the neighbors enjoy in this area. If we do that, then we'll be destroying the very reason for why we want to purchase the land in the first place. So thank you for taking the time to listen.
Thank you, Mr. Ashford. Okay. So, council, are there questions for staff or the applicant? Councilmember Holtz.
I guess a question for staff and/or legal. In terms of egg preserve, this isn't the only parcel we have in the city that has future zone for egg preserve. And I'm just wondering, why are we having this conversation with this property instead of perhaps having a conversation of, because we know this is not an isolated thing. There are multiple properties where, for the future zoning, this is an issue since the program no longer exists. Did we ever have any discussions to instead discuss updating the comp plan to establish a different type of a future use that instead maybe is similar to the purpose of the egg preserve?
So the Ag Preserve program is still in effect. It's just the contract for this specific property is no longer,
Okay.
it was terminated. So Ag Preserve is still a proper land use. Just
That clarification
lightening up
helps,
the
thank you.
property.
Would it be a fair statement, actually, Sophia, to say the council should remove it from Ag Preserve since the covenant has expired? And this covenant is registered with the Met Council and with the county and with the city. And if they no longer have one, they by very definition don't even qualify for AP.
Correct, hence staff's recommendation for RAD.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So in the recommended action motion, one of the things that for the zoning text for us to approve, it needs to be consistent with the land use in our comp plan. Can you help me understand, because I'm struggling with how a birthing center, medical facility, while it's not a typical hospital, I still characterize it as a medical facility. How that's consistent with ag? I'm struggling with that.
Yeah, that is a good question and something that staff did review. I guess staff's view on it is we do have other uses within the agricultural zoning district that might not be the full spirit of ag, such as wedding venues and bed and breakfast. So we felt it was kind of in that vein.
Okay.
So.
I'm not sure that that helps any. But okay.
So I have a question. We have other zones that are available for purposes such as this, as birthing centers. What are those zoned areas?
Medical facilities would be in your commercial districts typically.
Okay. All right. Councilmember Hearn.
So just to clarify, for clarification for the voting tonight, both the resolution and the ordinance would need to be passed for this project to move forward, correct?
Correct.
If one goes forward, we move forward with the RAD, but don't change the text amendments, we'd still be unable to move forward with the project.
Correct.
Perfect, okay. And then if I get a little clarification with some of the zoning use types, trying to find where I had it highlighted here. So in the packet on page 11, birth centers are shown as a classification under the use type of services as by themselves. But then birth center also again shows up under medical facilities as a within the definition of medical facilities. Can you just help me understand a little bit? So do we need both of them? Could we?
In the definition section, is that, I don't have the full staff report before me, but the intent of having birth center separate is to get that definition in city code. It's consistent with state statute, and then it's just clarifying that you could do it in an urban district
Okay.
as well.
And then, so I guess, because I'm wondering if we could still keep birth center in there, per the state statute, the definition of it, but we have it in medical facilities. So medical facilities means establishments engaged in providing diagnostic services, extensive medical treatment, et cetera, and then we added in birth centers as defined by state statutes, medical schools, associate dormitories, et cetera. So I'm just wondering do we have to have a separate, because I see that they should fit under medical facilities, so I don't understand if we need a separate classification for it. If we have it listed under medical facilities, would that suffice to, at least so we're considering birthing centers and we're following state statute for their definition?
Yeah, Nathan can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we need to keep birth center in there because that would be in rural districts. Otherwise, you'd be needing to amend the agricultural use table to include medical facilities as a whole, so you're opening that door up to other medical uses.
So if we kept it in the medical facilities use, it would not be allowed in agricultural.
Mayor and council, this is Nathan, for anyone who can't see me. So that is correct. So the reason that staff wanted to understand what the use was and then provide a recommendation here was for having birth center and then also separately defined and then also provided within medical facilities is to be able to split out birth centers as a very specific use in rural contexts, specifically here the ag district. But also continue to allow birth centers as a medical facility in commercial areas where they're already allowed.
Okay.
Yep.
So just maybe to confirm this, so if we did not want those to be considered appropriate use for ag, we would want to leave them under the use of medical facilities and not have them as their own category where we're separating out, where we're allowing it to be used for agriculture.
Yep, council member, that is correct. So if you were not looking to permit a birth center in the ag district, you would likely want to keep them classified under medical facilities and then not amend the city code to have a conditional use of birth center in the ag.
And the same for a transitional care facility, that was added as well. We could
Correct.
include that under medical facilities if we felt like that qualifies as a medical facility. We don't want it to be part of agricultural. Include that into the medical facility use definition.
Correct. So you would not allow that as a separate use within the agricultural district.
Okay, thank you.
I have one other question, Mr. Mayor.
Sure, go ahead.
So just to clarify, so to add birth center to our ag zone, this is essentially to get around our existing code to allow a birth center in an area where our code says it shouldn't go. Is that a fair enough statement? We're adding birth center because we have a request in front of us to build a birth center in a zoned area that doesn't allow it.
I'd say that's a fair assumption, yeah.
Councilmember Dragisich.
Yeah, I'm like Councilor Beckstrom, I'm kind of struggling with how this fits into this agricultural land use. We have a very large group of people, and we've all received emails and telephone calls, and it's been a pretty busy week of people talking about how does this fit in, and I've actually been at loss of words how to justify that. I think birth centers are important operations in our overall, facilities, but in an agricultural area, it just seems to not be a good fit to me. And I do understand the open space and back to nature and all those wonderful things that would bring to it, but it would seem that given both the current and historical agricultural uses we have in this area, it just doesn't seem to be a good fit to me.
Was there a question?
No, it was a discussion.
Oh, well, we're not at discussion yet.
Well, you know me, I never pay attention to the rules.
Councilmember Holtz.
Is there a preference from staff as to which resolution we vote on first? For purposes of either, no matter which one it comes out, is there a preference? Because I would prefer actually to vote on the zoning text amendment first.
Prior to getting to any of that, we have a number of people that would like to speak on that.
Also true. So when the time comes and we have a great discussion and input, does that matter?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I don't think it matters. You could vote on the text amendment first if you'd like, and then do the comp plan amendment. I will remind you the comp plan amendment does require 4 affirmative votes.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'd like an opportunity, if you don't mind, sir, to address your question, Mr. Council Member. So there really is no zoning anywhere in the state for birth centers. This is an issue that happens across the country whenever a birth center is developed. It doesn't fit in medical, it doesn't fit in residential, it doesn't fit in agriculture. There's always a issue with zoning with birth centers. There is no existing place to put it. They've been around for decades, but only more of a contemporary significant use. If you look at all the other acceptable uses for this property, you can build a storage facility, a commercial storage facility, you can build a dog kennel, you can build windmill farm, you can build solar farm, you can have a bed and breakfast, you can do recreational facilities. All of these things, I think, would be much more deleterious to the nature of the area than what we're trying to do, which really is fitting into the nature of a birth center is to be residential in nature. All those other things are not.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ashford. All right, so I'm going to move into public comments. We've got a number of people, and I'm just going to ask that, we got a lot of people that want to talk, and that's understood. However, if somebody has stated pretty much what you're gonna state, I don't know that we need 18 people saying the same thing. We understand where people are coming from. So I'm gonna call your name, and if what has been said already covers what you're doing, just you feel free to raise your hand and say, been said. You'll have 6 minutes for your comments. If we get to the 5-minute mark, I will let you know that you're at a 5-minute mark. You'll have 1 minute to finish up. And please state your name and your address for the record when you address the podium. And yeah, that's about it. So, first person I have up here is Joan Ziertman. If you'd like to come to the podium, please, and state your name for the record, address.
Joan Zertman, 5761 Keats Avenue.
Can you pull the, we know sometimes.
Mayor and City Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak. The residents, stakeholders, and commission members spent a lot of time, money, energy, and effort to develop the 2040 Comprehensive Plan to guide where uses and development belongs in our city. Under the city's 2040 Comprehensive Plan, the Birthing Center, Postpartum Center has no path forward in the agricultural zoning district. Under the comp plan and zoning code, the primary use in the ag zoning districts is a single-family home. The commercial use of Birthing Center and Postpartum Center would be allowed in 5 other Seward zoning districts within our city. These would be Business Park, General Business, VHDR, Village Mixed Use Commercial, Mixed Use Business Park. The ag zoning district is not in the MUSA and is not an appropriate area for intense commercial uses. The comp plan is a blueprint for our development in the city, and the Birthing Center, Postpartum Center is in direct conflict. The comp plan states that the existing land use patterns in the rural areas should be protected through this planning period. The employment location section states land uses served by the MUSA or planned extension of services will be the locations for employment through this forecasted planning period. There are existing limited business uses outside the MUSA that are anticipated to remain in operation, but there is no intensification of the land use in the projected areas. Those are the existing CUPs from the 70s and 80s. The comp plan also states that the rural areas are projected for modest growth similar to existing neighborhood and development patterns and should be protected throughout the planning period. The application for the Birthing Center postpartum are not similar to existing development patterns. There are many other statements in the comprehensive plan that would preclude this zoning text amendment. For the city to consider a zoning amendment, I would point to section 105.12.280 of City Code. The criteria for granting a zoning text amendment states that zoning text amendment shall be used as a means to reflect changes in the goals and policies of the city as reflected in the comprehensive plan. Nothing has changed in our comprehensive plan to allow commercial uses as a primary or accessory use in the ag zoning districts. In fact, it is very clear that it is not allowed. I would also like to point out that section 5.12.290 of City Code, conditional use permits, states that a conditional use must conform to the comprehensive plan. The use must be compatible with the existing neighborhood, will not change the essential character of the neighborhood, and there are a few other items dealing with traffic, noise, etc. And the last item I'd like to touch on is that I feel this would be spot zoning. The zoning text amendment is tailored specifically to this applicant. The staff is not asking to add the broader category of medical use, but have tailored the zoning text amendment specifically to this applicant. In my opinion, it would be a form of spot zoning, which is illegal in Minnesota. Spot zoning gives unjustified special treatment that benefits a particular owner while undermining the pre-existing rights and uses of adjacent property owners and establishing a use classification that is inconsistent with surrounding uses. In conclusion, I'd ask the City Council to deny the zoning text request and follow your comprehensive plan and current zoning code. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Zertman. Next, we have John Ames.
Mayor, City Council, my name is John Ames. I live at 9799 51st Street North in Lake Elmo. And first, I want to thank you for your service to the city. I have volunteered on the Parks Commission for many years, including serving 2 terms as chair. I know the work you do to protect and preserve the city is important work, so thank you. And I also want to thank my neighbors for coming out tonight. I've sat in the center chair, and when we've had a full house, it's uncommon when you attract this much energy on a topic on a Tuesday night. So thank you, neighbors. So you've received lots of comments. I'm not going to restate what I sent in my email to all of you. But there have been 2 separate topics tonight brought up around safety and pedestrian safety that have nothing to do with this one. Keats Avenue is not wide enough to add commercial traffic to. I run on that road, I bike on that road, lots of us walk on that road. There's no shoulder on that road, there's concrete curb and gutter there. There's nowhere to go if there's cars coming in both directions. There's obvious environmental impacts to Clear Lake, which Valley Branch would, I'm sure, want to look at. But I want to add a couple things, given the potential safety concerns with commercial traffic on Keats Avenue. And number one, it seems there would be financial impacts to the city to create safe pedestrian access between homes and to the community, to create a sidewalk or a trail or widen the road in some way to make it safe for those of us who live there. The other thing that a lot of us wonder about with this application is this is a beautiful piece of property, as the applicant has stated. Per the internet, it was a $1.6 million acquisition of the land, a 7,000 square foot building, and renovating a second building. I don't know what kind of revenue is produced by a birthing center, but it's hard for me to believe that's the only use that's ever going to be on that piece of property. And I have received a communication that the applicant sent out that suggests the property would be unaltered for the foreseeable future beyond those uses. And I don't know what the foreseeable future means to each person, but it's certainly undefined. Following the Planning Commission, some of us received a note from the applicant with other possible uses that could go on that land. One of them that was interesting, it felt like a little bit of a threat to us, like we could do much worse things with this piece of property, including motor freight and warehousing. And I'm not sure if that may, I'm not an expert in zoning, but that felt a little bit like you should accept this because we could do worse. The last thing I've heard people raise is, what if this fails? If there's a commercial use developed there and it fails by whatever definition failure is, what happens? If the zoning allowed for a change, and I'm, again, no expert in zoning, it seems like a camel's nose under the tent, if you will. So I've talked with dozens of people about this. No one is for it that I've talked with, and no one is neutral. There is no support in the local area for this development. And to the last point that the council discussed about approved uses or locations for medical facilities, the answer from staff was in commercial districts. Well, there's a reason for that, because there are wide roads and there's access to arterials to get patients to the hospital if necessary in an ambulance. Not on a street like Keats that is no wider than 2 cars. So I'd urge you to oppose this application. I don't know how it works with the three proposals that are for you, but please, I urge you to oppose it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Ames. Next, we have Joyce Kelch-Solwald.
Hello, I'm Joyce Solwald Kelch. My maiden name is Solwald. I'm at 4855 Keats. And in front of you, I gave you several copies of signed petitions from neighbors. And also, I have 2 more forms that were just handed to me recently that are also another additional 29 signatures that I can give you copies later. Anyways, as I stated, I live at 4055 Keats, so I'm the 4th generation of the same family farm, land that homesteaded, which totals 102 acres, that's still in ag preserve, that is on the south side of Clear Lake, right from this White Eagle Ranch. So the reason that, even this whole reason, this area was the reason that my great-grandfather settled here in 1864. So during these past 160 years, more people have settled in and enjoyed the same rural area of northwest Lake Elmo. I urge you to oppose this proposal of 2 or 3 zoning amendments, because this could drastically change everything that's currently a unique and tranquil area. This 5193 Keats, all these zonings amendments need to be declined tonight. This area has been currently zoned to keep the integrity of our rural life for every resident, any visitor, every animal, and all our wildlife in the area. The water in Clear Lake is not currently contaminated as of tested yet, but all the nearby lakes, Lake Jane Lake and Sunfish Lake and Lake Elmo are contaminated. I did contact John Hansen at the Valley Branch Watershed District, who is an engineer. He sent to the city several comments about all the things that we needed to conform to the branch district rules, as such as new structures will need to be constructed with their minimum floor elevations at least 2 feet higher than the adjacent 100-year floodplain. And a side note, the George Diggy's old house and the turkey sheds are in that 100-year floodplain. The permanent storm water management will need to have runoff rates and volume if required, because it'll be over 6,000 square feet of more new, fully reconstructed impervious surfaces are created. Permanent easements will be required for any storm water management facilities, and minimum average of unmowed vegetation buffers of impervious surfaces will be required for any uplands of the wetlands. So the water pollution from all these landscaping chemicals and salt runoff from the paved parking lots into lake water is a major concern. These amendments do not fit in the comprehensive plan. The current proposal of this clinic and the additional buildings for transitional care will just already push the limit of all the traffic on Keats. And with the limit of going to Highway 36, there's no acceleration lane to get onto that highway at all. And now with the owner saying this will be a growing business, in the future there could be additional buildings multiplying all the need for services and delivery trucks and number of vehicles using Keats and nearby neighborhood streets. So the traffic on Keats is so busy. I work those family farms that borders Keats Avenue, 47th Street, and Kimbrough. I always see how these streets are used every day. They're used by school buses and the mailman and the UPS and FedEx and large tractors pulling their implements up and down the road. But in addition to that, there's a number of citizens that are walking, jogging, large groups of bicycle runs and motorcycle groups, and the Stillwater school track team. I received an email from Ben at the school, high school, and he said they try and practice and they try and run during non-busy times. Will there be a non-busy time during this operation that will run 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year? The Metro Urban Service Plan and the Comprehensive 2040 Plan has designed areas in Lake Elmo for this type of clinical business. The city of Lake Elmo has committed to our community that will provide services while preserving rural landscape. We need to protect the existing rural landscape on Keats Avenue. Please deny the 3 proposals in front of you with the zoning text amendment, the comprehensive plan amendment, and the third one too. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Karen Schubert.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Karen Schubert. I live at 5222 Keats Avenue North. I look at this proposal as two businesses wanting to go into one property that's currently zoned as agricultural. The first business is a birth center. Sounds wonderful. It's going to be in the existing house with, quote, accommodations for up to 3 persons giving birth at a time, end of quote. This property is surrounded by single-family homes all around it. There is no business, no commercial, anything. The second business that the applicant proposes is his postpartum center, which is about 125 feet away from the existing residence across the yard. And that particular property will consist of luxury suites with lakefront patios, 15 parking spaces in back of it, 14 more parking spaces in an overflow parking lot, just a few steps away, with, quote, accommodations for up to 9 families for stays of up to approximately 1 week. Amenities include 24/7 infant care to allow new parents to get needed rest, available lactation and infant care consultants, spa treatments, and prepared meals. The proposed postpartum center would offer a supportive environment for new parents from across Minnesota and further afield to recover. End of quote. My question is, what is this that's going in there? Is it a recovery center? An educational facility? A 24/7 childcare center? An educational facility for lactation and childcare purposes? A restaurant, or all of the above? It looks like a motel that's going to be placed on its own septic system in close proximity to a lake. It's just not fitting into the neighborhood of residential homes. It's certainly, there will be an impact of traffic from the support staff and coming and going 24/7, 365 days a year. Medical waste trucks, haulers, possible food services, maintenance crews, and occasional emergency vehicles. All this for the benefit of people from all over Minnesota and further afield. Never mind the residents who are there now and are living there for the very reason of the tranquil rural environment, which will be disturbed by this facility. And it will certainly have not exactly an insignificant or modest impact on the environment, the neighborhood, and the lifestyle of the current residents. Also, I would like to add, even though it's been mentioned before, the letter that was sent to us by Minnesota Women's Care sounded a little bit like a threat. It sounded like anybody can move into Lake Elmo, buy a property, then ask to have it rezoned to his liking, ask for the zoning text to be rewritten to accommodate his liking, because he just spent some money and bought the property. Is that really the message Lake Elmo is trying to send to people who are looking to buy farmland? I hope not. I hope you will consider our concerns and give it some very serious thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schubert. Next, I have William Vogel.
I'll keep this short because you've got a letter, it was before some of the plans were released, et cetera. I pose these resolutions.
Could you state your address for the
Sure.
record, please, sir?
5055 Keats Avenue North. I'm 2 doors down the lake, right on Clear Lake there. Just so I'm not repeating others, to me, this transitional care center is a short-term hotel. And we're going from preserved ag straight to hotels on lakes in our town. To me, this is a bad precedent for our city. And I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vogel. And then I have George Crocker.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. My name is George Crocker, 5093 Keats. I'm immediately south of the property. If you're not the applicant, this proposal is spherically senseless. It makes no sense no matter which way you look at it. And I'm somewhat alarmed by my neighbors who are feeling threatened. And I would submit to you that when a community is feeling threatened, they're liable to get organized. The serenity that the applicant requests is by definition thwarted by his application. Please, I sent you an email. I said, please, do not put us to the test. We will not fail the test. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crocker. Jane, I can't tell if it's a V or an R, sorry. Chars? Sorry. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Thank you so much for being here this evening and listening to our concerns. Jane Chars, I live on 47th. I'm directly across the lake from this property. My mailing address is Post Office Box 769, Stillwater, Minnesota. I'm going to just say I support everything that everybody has said already, but I want to just make a few points here. And I did some research, and the applicant keeps telling us that this birth centers are in residential homes. They aren't. They're in commercial facilities. They're all zoned commercial. They were purchased as commercial properties, and they are currently commercial properties. They may be in mixed use in commercial areas, but they are commercial facilities. I also want to say that AP is a possibility still. If the right person bought this property, it could still be an AP. In order to qualify for AP, it needs to have 40 acres. You have 62 acres here that we're speaking of this evening. So a future owner could make an application and keep the property in ag preserve. The two properties to the south, as Joyce mentioned, are still in the ag preserve. I also want to mention that two properties further to the south of Joyce's land on 47th are both in conservation easements. So you can see that the area around the lake and the other homeowners in the area are working hard to preserve and conserve the nature and the environment in that area. I also want to say, I'm in real estate. I have never seen a 7,000 square foot house in our neighborhood. So, I mean, I don't know where those homes are, but if they exist, that's not the footprint of them. The city documents say that they are allowed accessory building there of 4,000 square feet, so they're already looking to expand that available square footage. So then I just want to kind of point out some of the things that I came across as I was looking at the city zoning. And there's an area in there that says that if you have a hard time figuring out where a property should fit into the zoning code, you go out to the Standard Industrial Classification Manual, and you can look it up. And the group that these properties best fit into are Major Group 80, Health Services. Industry groups 801 through 804 includes individual practices, group clinics in which a group of practitioners is associated for the purpose of carrying out their profession, and clinics which provide the same services through practitioners that are employees. Then it goes on and it talks about the different services that they offer under clinics of doctors of medicine, establishments of licensed practitioners having a degree of MD and engaged in the practice of general or specialized medicine and surgery. Establishments operating as clinics of physicians are included in this industry. Clinics of physicians, the applicant is a MD. Gynecologist, those are the services that they will be providing. Obstetricians, those are services that they'll be providing. Physicians, MD, including specialists, office and clinics, services provided by the applicant. I don't know if everybody knows what gynecology and obstetrics are, but it basically is about the care of women and science concentrated on pregnancy, childbirth, and postpartum period. We've had people talk about the biohazards. Yes, they will have to have biohazards removed in a separate type of waste management. I want to go on then and just kind of highlight a few things. I know Joan did a very good job, but under article regarding rural districts, and it talks about the purpose, and it says that the existence of rural development that is served primarily by on-site wastewater treatment facilities in the city. The objectives of these districts are to preserve and to enhance the quality of living in the existing rural areas, as well as to regulate structures and uses which may affect the character and desirability of these areas. Quote, "The rural districts and their purposes refer to single-family homes." This property is full, all the homes around, they're all single-family homes. And they went on to talk about the different businesses that are, on ag, and there isn't any in this area. We have 2 agriculturally related businesses off of 36. We have 3, what are they calling them? The 2 churches, and then the Green Acres up there. Other than that, they're home-based businesses. They're small, low-impact businesses in that area, run from people's homes. This, getting into the RAD, its designated land use is limited to areas not within the MUSA planning.
1 minute.
And is for residential and agricultural uses. So that's what RAD is. So, if you want to pull it out of AP and put it into RAD is for residential homes. It's not for business development, it's not for business parks, it's not for commercial activity. This business proposal doesn't fit into the rural residential area. I'll leave it at that, and thank you very much for your time. I hope you deny the application.
Thank you, Ms. Chars. Robert Gear.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Robert Gear. I live at 5275 Keats Avenue North. I am opposed to the rezoning of 5193 Keats Avenue. I'm the direct neighbor directly north of the proposed birthing center, and I'm going to keep it short since all of our neighbors have already said most of the concerns, but one of my concerns is the safety of my children. I've got a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old, and they have a bus stop on Keats Avenue, right down 2 blocks, not even, from the birthing center. And I'm concerned with parents rushing to the birthing center with mothers in active labor that will be speeding and flustered and would pose a threat to the safety of our children and all the other children in the area that have bus stops off of Keats and of nearby streets. Most, if not all, of the people going to the birth center will not be from the area, therefore will be unfamiliar with the streets, the speed limits, and this poses a great threat for the neighbors as we do not have sidewalks and many people walk, run, bike on Keats. Another concern is the privacy with the commercialization of the adjacent property. We have a direct line of sight right to the pole barns that they would be turning into the postpartum center and the birthing suites, and also the other building there. And then they have proposed walking trails that would come along our property line and have constant strangers looking into our yard and our backyard where our kids play, and it would absolutely destroy our privacy and sense of security in our own home. One other issue is I feel it would have a negative impact on our property values. You know, living next to a commercial entity such as a birth center is not desirable, to say the least, for all the reasons previously mentioned. One other fear is with the facility being open 24/7 and people constantly coming and going, that the wildlife will move out and find a new place to find peace. In conclusion, I wholeheartedly oppose the rezoning of 5193 Keats Avenue North and urge you to consider the serious concerns raised by the residents like us who will be directly affected every single day by this change. Please do not take this decision lightly, as it will have a significant impact on our families' lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gear. Next, we have Katie McGlynn.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Thank you for your time. My name's Katie McGlynn. I live at 5240 Keats Avenue North. I'm a resident on Keats. We'll leave it to the neighbors to speak to the neighborhood impact of this proposal. But I would urge you to vote no on the proposed amendments. But I want to share my concerns around placing this birth center and the luxury postpartum haven business on this stretch of Keats from the perspective of a mother who utilized the services of a birth center myself. I had a low-risk pregnancy, and so I chose to labor at a birth center that was 5 minutes from a nearby hospital. That turned into 10 minutes due to some construction. But after 32 hours of labor, I made the choice. I know, 32 hours, right? It was 38 on all, but after 32 hours, I made the choice to go to the hospital to get further help, to get an epidural, get some rest, and get my sweet girl out. But my move to the hospital, that 10 minutes, was the most uncomfortable and stressful time of my entire labor and delivery. And as soon as I arrived at the hospital, my situation became high risk when meconium was discovered in my amniotic fluid. I would have had to transfer to the hospital no matter what, but because I chose to move 10 minutes before it became an emergency, my delivery wasn't considered part of that percentage statistic of how many births have to move to a hospital. And so luckily my daughter was happily and healthfully born, no problems. And I did have a great experience with the birth center. But with my experience, I do have concerns about the true statistics around how often and how many of these deliveries are going to have to move to local hospitals. With no hospital within 15 minutes in perfect traffic, I have concerns around access and proximity to higher level medical treatment, particularly if and when access is limited due to construction, rush hour traffic on Highway 36, or notoriously slick intersections on each end of Keats in the winter. One fatality of a mother or child or driver due to a traffic accident or a birthing mother being stuck and unable to get higher level medical care is one too many. And as to the definition of a birth center, I will say that as a mother, I was absolutely relying on my birth center for medical care, for a low-risk pregnancy and a low-risk delivery, but it was medical care that was billed through my insurance. They were monitoring heart rates of myself and my baby. I had the opportunity to have nitrous oxide administered. And if that's not medical care, what is that? So for all these reasons, I urge you to vote no on the resolutions as proposed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Claudia Stannard.
Good evening. My name is Claudia Stannard. I live at 5230 Keats Avenue North, directly across from the proposed birth center and further postpartum recovery care. I feel like, and I hope that the members of this council who make really important decisions for our city are going to be champions to defend and retain the rural integrity we still have in this beautiful city. It sounds like some of you might be champions for that, and I think most of you are. This applicant indicates that his scheme would allow for people to come from further afield. To me, that doesn't sound like a small birthing center. It sounds like an opportunity for one person to do whatever they want once the city bends to their will. And what that sounds like and looks like and means for the whole of Lake Elmo is a slippery slope for any requests that future land buyers would have. If the city of Lake Elmo allows for and approves an amendment to its comprehensive plan and zoning ordinance that allows an individual to come in and request such changes, what is to stop any other person from coming forward and requesting the same or possibly worse? What benefit does this provide for our city, for its people, for generations of families who have lived around that area? Amending the city's comprehensive plan and zoning ordinance isn't kind of a big deal. It's a very big deal. The precedent that is set for an individual wanting to do business in a residential or rural area becomes, because of its beauty and serenity, is really dangerous for any other property owner in the city. And I strongly encourage the council to reject it. I would also like to add that people who are talking about the safety of our children who are getting on buses on Keats Avenue. I don't know if you know this, but the city or the Independent School District 834 is changing their calendar to start 1 hour earlier for elementary kids. That means that in the winter months when it is dark, as children get on their buses, and when it is dark, when children get off of their buses, is going to be really, really dangerous and scary for children who are already in this world and who are living in a beautiful place and should be able to do so safely. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Stannard. Next, I have Mark Stannard.
Good evening. Mark Stannard, 5230 Keats Avenue North, directly across the street from the proposed birthing center. I'd like to add two thoughts to the conversation, both based on my professional role as a family physician who has delivered almost 1,000 of the same types of babies that the nurse midwives would like to deliver, low-risk babies. And it's been my experience, and I'm going to piggyback on what Katie said, it's been my experience that even the best written low-risk birth plan doesn't always come to fruition. Sometimes there needs to be C-sections. Sometimes there needs to be a vacuum extraction. Sometimes there needs to be an epidural. And if you look at the statistics, somewhere between 17 to 20% of birth center attempts at delivery need to be transferred to a higher level of care. And if we're going to accept the math of the applicant, that 1 to 2 deliveries a day equals 30 deliveries a month, that roughly translates to 6 transfers a month, which roughly translates to ambulance trips that are gonna happen 1 to 2 times a week. And on Keats Avenue, an ambulance coming down the avenue is still a pretty big deal. As an owner of a practice for 25 years and knowing the healthcare environment, my other concern is that 30 deliveries a month based on the reduced reimbursement of a birth center is not a financially viable plan. And so my concern is what happens next to make this a financially viable concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stannard. And that is all the pages I have for people that wanted to speak. Thank you for your time and your comments. Given that, I guess we need a motion to have discussion.
Can I just ask one more question here?
Absolutely.
And I
Councilmember
apologize
Hunter.
if this was answered, I just missed it. But if the comp plan was amended to the R80 use, could a future landowner still apply for the AP since it's zoned ag? I think this is a question for council.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You'd have to amend the comprehensive plan again to put it back in an ag preserve guidance.
Okay. And again, I think maybe this is what you answered previously. Since it's not under contract, if we don't amend the comp plan, is it just in limbo? It's not, since it's just for a future land use that it's zoned as AP, do we need to change that? Because it's staff kind of, it seems like we do, but
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I think staff is recommending that the council change that just so that it matches up with the comprehensive plan, because right now it is currently zoned agricultural preserve. It's not in agricultural preserve, and therefore it should be zoned rural in order to match the comprehensive plan.
In addition, with AP, you have certain exemptions from anything such as special assessments. There's a special tax break for it, which if you're not an AP, you're not qualifying for. I think it's just a fairness issue. It's my recommendation. We do not leave it in AP because it, frankly, from a legal standpoint, it doesn't qualify and it shouldn't be there. I think that's the simplest answer. The AP, if the covenant isn't there, they really have not met the qualifications to be in there. And they're getting a tax break that they're not entitled to.
Councilmember Holtz?
So my motion is regarding the zoning text first. Move to deny ordinance 2024-09, which would have approved the zoning text amendments requested by Minnesota Women's Care as amended by city staff.
second.
All right, we have a motion to deny ordinance 2024-09, approving the zoning text amendments requested by Minnesota Women's Care as amended by staff.
And Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Members of the council, I don't believe we have a denial resolution in the packet.
I think it's a, you need to, it's a request to facts of finding for denial.
We will
would be
need
the motion.
findings of fact. I don't know if we have time under the rule to come back with a resolution for next time.
We do. We
do.
bring a denial resolution to the May 21st meeting.
So at this point, I would ask that the motion be to direct staff to prepare a resolution denying the
Yeah.
zoning
And then
amendment.
So if you
and we'll-
would withdraw
findings of
your,
fact.
And then we will give some reasons. I could just friendly amend my own motion.
not really,
Move to rescind prior motion.
seconded.
Move to request staff create reasons for denial for ordinance 2024-09.
Second.
All right,
So,
discussion.
well, first, this has been a good discussion, and the applicant has a legal right to apply for this, and residents have every opportunity to provide feedback. So this is how government is supposed to work. Social studies teacher in me loves this, but in all seriousness, I don't feel there is a reason to change our zoning code at this time. I take heart with much of the feedback in terms of the area is not compatible for this type of additional use. And I do feel strongly that a medical facility, really as intended in our city code, is correctly placed where it is right now. And I say this as one who owns a medical facility. My wife is a practitioner. I own because of other reasons. But I understand the need for this. I do. But medical facilities, to me, are best placed in areas of commerce, in areas of where the road infrastructure can handle it, especially in the MUSA areas. I do not feel the need to change it to allow a medical facility in this type of zoning at this time. Or ever, really.
I would concur with those comments.
You know, I think with me, honestly, when I saw this right away, it didn't really seem like a possibility from the get-go. I think one of the really nice takeaways, though, is with this discussion tonight, there were 30 other things that I didn't even think about that are excellent points of just further of why this doesn't fit in an agricultural zoning district. The purpose of the agricultural zoning district and from the comp plan is for agriculture and other activities typically associated with agriculture. There is some, discussion about interim use and short-term uses. This is neither. It does not fit in there. As far as for that second point with like the land uses, I don't think this is uses consistent with that land use definition for RED in the city. I think there are other options for it. The commercial, I think even limited business, limited commercial could be an option. I do not have any idea how we can fit this in RED and be actually sticking to our code. It just doesn't work. And the additional reasons that were given tonight were just more reasons beyond just what the code says. So I feel pretty strongly that we should not move forward with this as well. So I'm glad that we had the conversation. I'm glad that it seems like the majority of the council feels that way as well.
Part of what I love about Lake Elmo is that we do have rural areas within our city that are open space, and I do echo that I wish Keats Avenue had some shoulders on it, because I do see a lot of people walking and biking on those. But that we also have an area that does have commercial and business use, and it seems appropriately deemed in our comprehensive plan to be primarily in and around the old village and south of 10th Street near I-94. We have many zones that allow this type of use, and I'm not, when I first saw this, I didn't understand how that would fit in this area. I don't think that it fits in this area. So that's kind of my bottom line. Councilmember Jurgasich.
Yeah, I concur with my fellow council and elected officials. When I first saw it, I didn't see how it fit either. The exchange you've had here this evening, the emails, the phone calls have been overwhelming, and people's idea of what agriculture meant to them and what it's meant to them over the time they've been in that property. And I believe that's an important aspect to you. And as I read the definition of agricultural property, I came to the conclusion this just wasn't a good fit for there, concurrent with what you've been telling me.
Councilmember Beckstrom, you have anything?
Yeah, I'll just add a few comments. I look at this request as somewhat symbolic of a bigger issue that I see that maybe we need to put on the table, which is, in my opinion, a comp plan change should be a rare event or request. There should be an undeniable benefit to the city. I'm increasingly concerned at the frequency at which council is being asked to change our comp plan and zoning to meet the needs of an individual developer. With each request, I think we're compromising the integrity of that plan. And in some ways, I feel like maybe we've lost our way from a city planning standpoint, as it feels like we approach applications from the standpoint of how can we get a development approved rather than does this development meet the vision of our community as laid out in the comp plan. And rather than finding every angle we can to get a development approved, I'd like to see that same level of critical evaluation of these requests to see if they even belong in our community and where they're being requested. We simply are not desperate for development in the city, and approving Every request isn't required, nor is it in the best interest of the city. So we need to be protecting our rural areas by abiding by the zoning we've established. And if we continue to make exceptions, we will lose the rural character in our community. And so I just want to challenge our planning department to feel empowered to recommend denial to council once in a while instead of recommending approval of all of these requests. Take a harder line and work for the city. So I don't want to see so many comp plan changes coming to council, to be perfectly honest. So.
All right, with that, I'll do a roll call on the motion to have facts of finding for denial of zoning text change amendment for ordinance 2024-09. I get that right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Councilmember Beckstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember Dragisich.
Aye.
Councilmember Holtz.
Aye.
Councilmember Hearn.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Motion to deny or find facts of finding for denial passes 5-0.
Move to adopt resolution 2024-054, approving the comprehensive plan amendment for the property from Egg Preserve to rural area development with conditions listed in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, discussion. Anybody have any questions on that? I think I have a question. I gotta find what I'm looking for here.
And while you're doing that, I can comment.
Yes, please do.
I fully agreed with the line of questioning from Councilmember Hearn as well as to, do we need to? And I think the comment from Interim Administrator Schroeder really got to the point of there is a tax impact, and legally, they do not qualify for egg preserve, even if it is a future use. It is not a current use, it is a future use. So rural area development is what the area generally surrounding is for the future use. There's many large parcels. There's a 60-acre parcel about a block west that is also rad. And so now we wouldn't have brought this forth if not for the original application, but I agree, like, while we are at it, this is somewhat of a need to do this to make sure our comprehensive plan is aligned correctly. Yeah, the other thing I was gonna mention, I was hesitating whether to bring this up. Feedback has been fantastic for this, from residents, in terms of emails, calls, text, and, our job is to listen. We're residents ourselves. We have families. We have kids. We are not holy. We are no different than anyone else. But I would just hesitate and request, and this only happened with 2 instances, that I would just ask to maybe keep the heat down a little. And again, this only happened with 2 instances, but there was an instance where someone communicated about this being an assault, and that they have been assaulted before and they have responded accordingly before. I would just ask that we can do better than that. This is not an assault. This is a request that is legally allowed to be made. There's a process, and we hear it. This is not an assault. This is a part of a natural due process. But again, 99% fantastic, thoughtful, thorough, but that was not okay. We can do better.
All right, I answered my own question, so I'm good.
I'm intrigued.
Well, I was just checking the zoning to make sure I knew it was the way it's consistent.
Okay. Oh, sure.
I'm glad I talked long enough for that.
Appreciate that. I always enjoy a helping hand. All right, any other questions? Otherwise, I'll call the question on the motion that's on the table. All right, we'll call a vote. Councilmember Beckstrom?
Nay.
Councilmember Jurisic,
Yes.
Councilmember Holtz,
Aye.
Councilmember Hearn.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well, so motion passes 4-1. Okay.
Is the resolution limited for publication just to the?
Yes.
To okay.
Yes.
Move to adopt summary of publication of ordinance 2024-09 with approval of resolution 2024-
No, we don't, it was only if we amended the comp plan. So the zoning tech, or the,
we just did.
well, no, we don't need to put that other piece in the paper.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the resolution for publication by title and summary is for the ordinance. You're denying
Yeah.
the ordinance. We'll bring back a resolution denying it next
Thank
time.
you.
Let's go back 60 seconds. I say
Yeah.
nothing.
All right.
And
Perfect.
Mayor, if I may make a comment?
Yes.
For the people in this area, anybody who has 40 acres can apply for a comp plan to put their land in AP. It requires a 8-year commitment. You register a covenant and record the document, demonstrate it at the county. It's recorded with the Met Council. The Met Council has this AP benefit in the 7-county area to have people who are interested in preserving their, their land in a such way that it won't be developed. Again, it does expire, but anybody can apply for a comp plan for this, to do this if they're interested. You might note that the tree farm, Kruger's just did that, if I remember correctly.
Actually, they went into a conservation easement.
Oh, they did? I stand corrected.
All right, so with that item of business being done, number 18, I'm gonna call a point of privilege for a 5-minute break. Just allow the room to clear out if needed. And for a little break, yeah. All right, we'll get the meeting back in order. Is Councilmember Backstrom online again? Any confirmation of
Yep,
that?
I'm
Oh, all right, great, thank you. So next item on the agenda is public improvement hearing, order the improvements and accept bids and award contract for the 15th Street North improvements, Resolution 2024-052. We have City Engineer Jack Griffin presenting.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Back on March 19th, this is the last time the council saw this item. We approved the feasibility report and called the improvement hearing to be held tonight, so that's what brings us here. At the same time, we also approved the plans and specifications and ordered the advertisement for bids, so we put the project out for bids simultaneously. So since that meeting, we've we did receive contractor bids, and so we'll be bringing those back here tonight and discussing those. And then we also had a residential neighborhood meeting. There's 7 properties on this project. We did only have 1 resident on the meeting. They do own 4 of the properties, so still batting well from a percentage of turnout. But the meeting was noticed for tonight through the paper and through the legal notices. So that's what brings us here tonight for a public improvement hearing. We'd ask the council to hold the hearing tonight, and then following the public hearing we have recommended motions for the council to order the improvements and accept the bids and award a contract. Those would be the actions that would move us into construction at that time. So the project is the 15th Street North improvements. It's shown in the red line here. It's a collector roadway connecting, basically going from our city limits bordering Oakdale and to Inwood Avenue. This is the existing road conditions from our ratings, our road ratings that were most recently done for this roadway segment. As you can see, it's in the lowest category. Road's in pretty bad shape, which is why it's been slated for reconstruction. Public Works has Band-Aid this roadway together multiple times to get it further along before we were going into reconstruction. So it's well overdue. So we presented the feasibility report before in the findings for the project. The improvements are a street reclamation, so it's a pretty simple project. It's a rural section roadway. It's 40 feet of pavement currently, so 2 12-foot drive lanes with 8-foot paved shoulders, and then just rural section. We're really just going into the roadway and reclaiming the pavement and putting back what's there with a recycled base, and then putting a new bituminous mat over it, and then putting the striping back that's essentially there. And then the one other element, so that's the first half of the improvement, and that's the other half. And the one other element is we are narrowing the 40 feet down to 36 feet. So we're leaving the final roadway with 6-foot paved shoulders rather than 8-foot paved shoulders. That also helps us with impervious surfaces. There's no stormwater improvements, no stormwater management mitigation required as part of the project. This is just in the feasibility report, basically showing the typical sections of the existing and the proposed, which really just narrows those the roadway by 4 feet, 2 feet on each side. So when we ran the scope of work, then we do the estimate of cost and we run it through the city's assessment policy. These are the 7 properties that are abutting the roadway corridor. Shown the red property is being used as a commercial use. The other ones are agricultural residential use. And then we do have ag preserve in these, and this is one of the first times we're embarking on this with our assessment policy. So each of these 3 residential properties I just cited up there are currently in ag preserve, which means we cannot assess the parcel. And the commercial property is actually partially, there's a description where part of the property is in ag and part of it's not. So with the ag preserve aside for the moment, we did take that scope of improvements. The total cost of the project is estimated at $532,000. We run it through our assessment policy. The residential properties we assess 30% of the project costs. And there's 6 residential properties. It comes out to be $8,200 per residential property is the unit assessment for each home. And then the one commercial property, we assess those properties, non-residential, basically, we assess 100% of the total project costs for their lineal frontage. And so when we do the frontage analysis of that parcel at 8281 15th Street North, it comes out to be $39 a foot. So the preliminary assessment for that one commercial property is $39,800. So with that, the improvements would be funded. It is a municipal state aid route, and we are allocating $330,000 in state aid funds toward the project. And then the special assessments we would collect with ag preserve set aside for the moment would be $89,000, and then the remaining funds would be paid out of the general tax levy funds in the amount of $113,000. So this is the preliminary assessment roll that's in the feasibility report. I'm not presenting it expecting you'd be able to read it, but it just itemizes each parcel and each unit assessment that is out there for the adopted preliminary assessments. And then we did, since that time, we did work with City Attorney's Office and looked at the ag preserve properties. And the recommendation was to go ahead and adopt the preliminary assessment roll as it is today, not acknowledging the ag preserve properties. There's always a chance that when we do the final assessment roll at the end of the project, we would recheck, make sure all those properties are still in ag preserve. And if they are in ag preserve, they would then be removed from the assessment roll before the council adopts the final assessment roll. So that was the process of how we decided we would bring it forward. So with that, the feasibility report does have some findings and recommendations that are summarized in the slide. As I mentioned before, the street pavements along 15th Street are well beyond their useful service life, and they require the improvements recommended in the report. We did do a thorough geotechnical investigation as part of the report to verify that a full depth reclamation is feasible and recommended. It would provide a 10-ton roadway design as a final product. It's recommended to reduce the pavement surface width from 40 feet to 36 feet as part of the project. So we're just taking the shoulders down 2 feet each. There's no stormwater or storm sewer management improvements necessary as part of this project. As a designated municipal state aid street, it's recommended that we allocate $330,000 of our current construction state aid funds toward this project. And then it's recommended that an assessment be levied in accordance with the preliminary assessment rolls that are provided in the report, including the properties currently designated as ag preserve. Street assessments are payable over 15 years at a bond rate at plus 1%, whatever the project's bonded for. And the project as proposed is technically and financially feasible, is necessary, cost-effective, and will result in the benefits to the properties. So that's the conclusions of the feasibility report. So at this time, we'd ask the council to hold the public improvement hearing, and then we have these actions for council consideration.
Questions for Jack? What is our state aid allotment annually for the city of Lake Elmo?
It's been going up a little bit. I want to say it was eight something the last year.
Okay, so roughly a little over a third for this project, okay.
We've accumulated, right now the construction account is at 1.17, and we're gonna spend 1.4 on the next project I'll be presenting for Hudson Boulevard, and 330 for this project.
Councilmember Hearn?
It's come up tonight. Can you, with the AP properties, how are they taxed for this? Rate, how does it differ from the rest of the properties?
As far as, I can't speak to the taxes. I know they get a discounted tax rate over what you would if you're not an AP. As it relates to a public improvement project like this, you're not allowed to levy the assessment. You can't assess the property. So in this instance, we'd still do the calculations the way we do, and we see what the proportionate share is based on our assessment policy, but really the city has to pick up that share of the cost that you can't assess to those parcels.
So it's zero assess?
Zero assessment, correct.
And one of the things that I plan on having Ms. Miller look into in the future is looking at all the AP properties within the city, making sure that one, covenants are still in existence, and two, that they still qualify based on their activities on the piece of property itself.
Jack, I think you and I discussed this. The original engineer's estimate was based on a full reconstruct, and the engineering, the estimate that came in based on the contractor's bid, it was based on the full depth reclamation, and that's the large difference between, I think it was 582 and the 330,000. Is it? Am I right in that, or am I off?
The concept is correct, the numbers are a little
Oh,
off.
okay, yeah.
So it was the CIP, the capital improvement plan.
That's right.
We
yeah.
had for this project was 1.3 million. We were thinking the pavement was in such bad condition that we would be doing a full reconstruction, which then segues into stormwater mitigation and property acquisition for that. And so we thought it would be a much more robust project. When we got into the feasibility and found out we could do the reclaim, we're able to really get the same pavement product that we need out of this at a much more efficient cost. So the feasibility study has a total cost of $532,000. That was based on a construction cost of $392, and our bids that came in for this project were $381. So we're
Right.
about 10 under what the estimate was.
All right. Any other questions for Jack? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to open the public improvement hearing.
So moved.
Support.
All right, we have a motion and a second to go into the public improvement hearing. I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Beckstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember Dragisich,
Aye.
Councilmember Holtz,
Aye.
Councilmember Hearn.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Going into the public improvement hearing at 9:20 PM. If there's anybody that would like to speak to this project, please do so. Please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, sir.
Hello, Mayor and Council. My name is Tom Armstrong. I live at 8280 15th Street North. My mother owns parcels, my father owns parcels. We comprise the 4 parcels of the Armstrong farm. We have no opposition to the project itself. And I just want to clarify that the storage business located on our farm is through a conditional use permit that's in the agricultural zone. It's one of the non-agricultural low-impact use permits. It's allowed us to preserve the farm. And the actual site of the storage area, approximately a 20-acre area, about 21.26 acres to be exact, is not in ag preserves. The rest of the farm is in ag preserves. Most of the farm also has conservation easements placed on it. It won't be developed ever. I think we're setting a record tonight for ag preserves mentions here at the city council.
I would agree.
And I can talk forever about ag preserve, and I'd be happy to address any council members or staff issues about future issues about ag preserve. In brief, the reason ag preserve was created back in the early 1980s was because you had cities like Oakdale and Woodbury basically zoning farmers off the property because they would do an assessment for mainly a trunk sewer line because they were pushing the sewer lines out fast and furious back then in the 1970s and early 80s. And the assessment for the trunk sewer line would be so high that these farmers would basically have to sell because they just couldn't afford these assessments. There's a program called Green Acres, but that only defers the assessment. You still owe it. There's actually a property in Woodbury called Jordan Ranch who's had a Green Acres assessment building up for decades now, and I believe it even surpasses, it's gotta be surpassing the value of their property. You'll see their story in the paper occasionally. But that's a brief history of ag preserves. There is really no tax advantage for ag preserves. What it does is, it takes the statewide average of farmland and it uses that tax base value for assessing the acreage valuation. And so basically there's no punishment for being located in a city, which isn't the farmer's fault, it just happened that development came nearby. It uses a statewide average for taxation. I can tell you for the past 20 years, the taxes on our farmland have been going up very quickly because the outstate farmers are rapidly purchasing farmland and they keep driving the property values up in outstate Minnesota, and it drives the value up, which is fine. But basically, I won't take any more of your time. It's been a long night. And if anybody in the staff or council would need more information about the ag preserves, specifically on our farm for that commercial area, we can provide any documentation needed on that. So thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Mr. Armstrong. If there's nobody else to speak on this at the public hearing, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close public hearing.
Support.
We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Beckstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember Dragisich,
Aye.
Councilmember Holtz,
Aye.
Councilmember Hearn,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Motion passes. Public improvement, public hearing is closed at 9:23.
Move to approve resolution number 2024-052, ordering the improvement, accepting bids, and awarding a contract to Bituminous Roadways, Inc. for the bid amount of $381,004.40 for the 15th Street North improvements.
Support.
So we have a motion. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll move to a roll call vote. Councilmember Beckstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember Dragisich,
Aye.
Councilmember Holtz,
Aye.
Councilmember Hearn,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Motion passes.
Move to authorize the city administrator to enter into a material testings contract with Braun Intertech in the not-to-exceed amount of $5,906 for the 15th Street North improvements.
Support.
All right, I will be abstaining from this vote as the company is my employer. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll move to a roll call vote. Councilmember Beckstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember Dragisich,
Aye.
Councilmember Holtz,
Aye.
Councilmember Hearn.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Next on the item is Chavez Property Comprehensive Plan Amendment and Zoning Map Amendment, Ordinance 2024-10, Resolution 2024-058, and Resolution 2024-059. Ms. Jensen will be presenting.
Thank you, Mayor. The applicant for tonight's applications are Joe and Joan Chavez. The property is located within Sunfish Lake. The property is roughly 11.2 acres. Only 1.21 of those is over the ordinary high water level mark. Again, the rest is within Sunfish Lake. The property is currently zoned rural residential with a shoreland overlay and guided in the city's comprehensive plan as rural area development. A little history on this property. The property has been landlocked for many years. The property will be receiving access through North Star Second Edition, which is that bottom photo. This is the first step of a two-step process for the applicant to develop and then sell the property. And I do want to point out the graphic on the bottom. The solid purple lines are the current outlot that the applicant has worked with the developer to create. The purple dash line are the originally platted outlot through the North Star development. So this outlot has gone through one revision already. So to provide a visual of the requests, the first part of this would be changing the color of the parcel from green to yellow with black dots. That is re-guiding the parcel from rural area development to village low-density residential. And then you'll see the black dashed line shift, and that is the MUSA boundary, which is the city's sewer boundary. Moving on to the zoning map amendment, the parcel will be changing from tan to yellow with black dots, which is again village low-density residential, or rural residential to village low-density residential for the city's zoning map. Proposal analysis, the comprehensive plan amendment and zoning map amendments, again, are legislative decisions by the city, meaning you have the most authority when making these decisions. Any change in the comp plan should be consistent with the goals, policies, and intent of the city, and the city's zoning map should be consistent with the comp plan and future land use map. So again, those two go hand in hand. Staff would like to note that due to the ordinary high water setback of Sunfish Lake and the bluff protections on the property, there's almost no buildable area on the property. If this project moves forward, the applicant will need variances to shoreline and bluff standards that they may not meet the variance criteria for. The applicant could purchase additional property from the North Star development since the second edition has not yet been final platted. And again, the applicant has already revised the outlot once with the developer. This acquisition would increase buildable area and allow them to relocate the home further away from the bluff and reduce or eliminate the need for variances. With that being said, staff is supportive of the amendments tonight to eliminate split zoning if the parcels do move forward. The outlot is created. we'd want them to have the same zoning if they're combined. Moving on to agency review. This was sent for agency review on March 15th. The fire department provided comments regarding drive lanes, fire detection, fire suppression, building addressing, gates, locks, and access. They'll review the plans moving forward when they're in more detail. The city engineer provided comments regarding impervious surface, water connection, grading, and stormwater. They also wanted to review more detailed plans. The county commented that they were okay with the comprehensive plan amendment request. The watershed district indicated that no permit is required at this time, but they would also want to review the request moving forward, and the DNR did not provide any comments. Staff has 4 recommended findings and 1 condition of approval. The first finding is outlining what the comprehensive plan amendment is for. The second is outlining what the zoning request is for. The third is that the request is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. The fourth is that the amendments are consistent with the surrounding area. And the condition of approval is Met Council approval. So a public hearing was sent to surrounding property owners on March 13th and published in the local paper on March 15th. The applicant, Joe Chavez, did provide a response memo, and then we did receive 1 other comment in support of the request. The Planning Commission voted to recommend approval of the request at their March 25th meeting. And with that, I can stand for any questions, and we do have the applicant here tonight.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Councilmember Jurisic?
I'm a bit confused in some ways because we're rezoning a parcel that can't be built on without a significant number of variances.
Correct. We haven't seen specific site plans yet, but it appears that variances would be needed.
And so by going ahead and approving these changes, are we in effect locking ourselves into approving the variances?
No, the variances would need to meet the criteria outlined in state statute. The reason why staff is recommending approval is so we don't have split zoning between that outlot
Okay.
and the larger parcel.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilmember Holtz?
I would just be curious from a history standpoint, how the parcel came to be with that 1.2 acres, that sliver on that spot, given that we know Shilkin family had most everything that was to the east, and just how this, because it's a very unique parcel in that regard, just how it came to be, or would help to conceptualize this.
I think the applicant would be the best to address that.
Solid.
Would the applicant like to speak to council, please? Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Joe Chavez. I live at 3505 Kelvin Avenue North, Lake Elmo, which is on the west end of the lake, Sunfish Lake. And the way this whole thing came about, to give you a little bit of history, my father-in-law purchased a canopy farm back in the late 60s, which consisted of essentially all the lakeshore on the west end of Sunfish Lake, as well as some of the lakeshore where this lot sits on the east end. And over the years, basically, we built our house in 1981. And primarily, our family lives on the west end of the lake. And as part of his development plans, my father-in-law and the Whitman farm, which is where the hamlet is today, and the Frederick farm, which is on 14 there, they donated, or not donated, but they made available a lot of land in order to build Sunfish Lake. And so that's how this all came about in terms of my family owning that part of the lake and so forth. And so that lot in particular is a lot of record. And it was a lot of record as of 1980. And we took control of that parcel in 1993. And since 1993, we've been trying to get access to that lot because it's been landlocked. So when the hamlet went in, it was landlocked. We couldn't get any easements into the hamlet or through the hamlet. And then the second attempt was, and it was interesting because the city allowed that parcel to continue to be landlocked, back in the 90s. And then when the Legacy Farm was developed later on, we attempted to get access through the Shilkin Farm, and that was refused by the Shilkin owners, so that we could have access to the Legacy. And now that the rest of the farm is being developed, You know, it's given us the perfect opportunity. It's been laid out, it's been platted out, it's been surveyed. And so now we have the perfect opportunity to, you know, monetize our investment on that parcel, because it's 11.2 acres. But I believe it's like about 1.5 acres that's above the ordinary high water mark. And so everything has been laid out in terms of the configuration, because initially the outlot was configured, and then working with the developer, reconfigured the outlot so that we'd have better access and make it more accessible in terms of that. So that, I mean, that's where it stands today.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chavez, I see there's been some changes to the outlot.
Yes.
Do those changes allow you to move forward with building without variances on that lot?
We may need variances for that lot. I mean, talking to the watershed Valley Branch, basically said, you know, they'd be happy with just if we put like a rain garden there and maybe a culvert.
Is that due to,
It's due to, I guess, the slope, because if you look on the other side of the lake, on the west end of the lake, there are 5 houses on that lake. Ours was built in 1981. Two other ones were built before our houses, and only one house required a variance, and that was in 1993. They're all built on a bluff, and they're all built on slopes. And so it's consistent in terms of, you know, what's been developed for the last 50 years on the west end of the lake.
okay. Any other questions for the applicant? I can't see Ms. Beckstrom. Do you have any questions?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Chavez. Yes, Councilmember Hearn?
Okay, so with the 1.5 acres above the ordinary high water mark, with it being in the VLD, if it got rezoned to VLDL, would that, so it would come out to where we'd need to have 3 units, I believe, on that property to fit within the VLDL parameters of 1.5 to 3 units per acre. Because we're doing it off of available land, correct?
Village, low-density residential.
Staff?
Sorry, yes. So if I'm doing my math right, we would need at least 2 units on that available land.
So we'd have to review a specific survey. We do have items such as bluffs that would reduce the buildable area. But we met with Met Council, and at a high level, they didn't see any issue with the
With
proposed
going-
request.
Okay.
I'm just curious, yeah, I don't want to look backwards, but I'm just wondering why this wasn't lumped in when we did the Shilkin parcel change. But that's neither here nor there, so, all right. Yeah, yes, Mr. Chavez.
It's interesting because, you know, I asked the question a long time ago, why MUSA excluded that lot. Because on the north end of the North Star Legacy, there are 2 parcels that were initially part of MUSA. And then for some reason, they vanished. And then maybe a year or 2 ago, they had to reapply into
Right.
MUSA because all of a sudden, there wasn't any documentation
I
as to
recall
why they
that.
were removed.
Yes. So
And so-
this was this originally MUSA?
I don't think it was, no, but the question I had to MUSA was like, why wasn't this included? Because it's right on the farm, right next to the farm.
Okay, thank you. I recall those 2 lots up on, I think it's, what is that, 45th? Can't remember what street that is. Like Krieger's tree farm is? Yeah. Okay. All right. If there's no more questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to adopt ordinance 2024-010, wow, I can't read, 2024-10, approving the comprehensive plan amendment for PID 14.029.21.24.0004 from RAD to Village Low Density Residential and amend the MUSA boundary based on the findings and subject to the conditions listed in the staff report.
Is there a second? I'll second for discussion. All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Discussion. Councilmember Holtz.
So personally, because we had this discussion when we talked about the Shilkin Farm, and we had a very specific discussion that this was to allow, we knowingly were going to have, as part of that, access to this parcel. Like, we had that into our discussions. Sadly, we didn't have it in our discussion that we should have put it in the MUSA at that time. And I guess I didn't think of it at that time, and I probably should have as well, but the intention was that. And we do have MUSA to the north of it, to the northeast of it, and to the east of it. So I don't see this as a change to our vision or a plan, but rather an alignment of what is already there. Now, on the flip side, I know full well, in order for this to be usable, there likely could be some variances. And so even this change does not mean it's buildable. But I see absolutely zero issue with having it be zoned with everything that is surrounding it. That to me is a very logical thing to do.
I think looking at it, yeah, looking back, I can't remember if I was on the planning commission at that time. Council put that in there. But it seems consistent with the area around it as currently as an outlier. Seems to be consistent with the area surrounding it. Everything land south, north, and east of it. Certainly isn't any land to the west of it, as it's a lake. So I see it as being consistent with the land currently around it. Any other discussion? Notwithstanding that, certainly we need to know that even with, if it's accepted in the MUSA, it still needs to be made buildable and pass for various permits and whatnot to make it as such. So I'll call the question. Councilmember Beckstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember Dragisich.
Aye.
Councilmember Holtz.
Aye.
Councilmember Hearn.
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Motion passes 5-0. Somebody else call the motion besides Holtz.
My voice is shot.
Tired of hearing him.
And Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify, the first thing was actually a resolution.
Yeah,
And that
resolution,
approved the
sorry.
comp plan, and then now we're doing a ordinance to rezone the property.
Right, okay. Thank you for the clarification.
I'll move to adopt Resolution 2024-058, approving the zoning map amendment for PID 1429-2124-0004 from rural residential to village low-density residential based on the findings and subject to conditions listed in the staff report.
Well done.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Dragisich, second by Councilmember Hearn. Discussion? Basically, it's a continuation of the first resolution, so I'll call a question. Councilmember Beckstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember Dragisich.
Aye.
Councilmember Holtz.
Aye.
Councilmember Hearn.
Aye.
And aye as well. Motion passes 5-0.
I'll move to adopt the summary publication of ordinance 2023-10 with approval of resolution 2023-059.
Second.
We have a motion second for publication. I'll call the question. Councilmember Beckstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember Dragisich.
Aye.
Councilmember Holtz.
Aye.
Councilmember Hearn.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Motion passed 5-0. Thank you. Item number 21 has been stricken from the agenda. Item number 22 is accept feasibility report and call for improvement hearing and approve plans and specifications and order advertisement for bids for the Hudson Boulevard Segment A improvements. Resolution 2024-053.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Just waiting for the PowerPoint to open here. The Hudson Boulevard improvements were also part of the 2024 Collector Street improvements that began last year with 15th Street and 30th Street. So the other two projects you've seen and awarded contracts to now, Hudson Boulevard moved on to a separate track. Because it's a little bit more of a difficult, complex project, so it moved on to its own schedule. So we're here tonight to present to you both the feasibility report and to get approval of the plans and specifications to move on with bids. So this, as I mentioned, this project started last year when the council authorized the preliminary design in order to do the scoping of the proposed improvements for this corridor. The recommendations of the preliminary design was presented at December 5th. The council approved those and authorized the preparation of the feasibility report and the plans and specifications. So we're here with those completed documents tonight. And if the council finds those documents, accepts those documents tonight, we have a contractor bid date scheduled for June 6th. And then we would come back on the 18th, have a public improvement hearing for those improvements and look at the award of a contract for those bids. So Hudson Boulevard, the corridor we're talking about is the segment basically extending from Inwood Avenue to Keats Avenue is what we were looking at. It's where the area is mostly built out from development now. And the area in black was completed as the CASA 19 Hudson Boulevard traffic signal improvements in front of the Quick Trip. The area in yellow was reconstructed as part of the Springs development. And then the green segments have all been designed and are planned to be constructed as part of future development projects. So Amira is just had a pre-construction meeting, so they're proceeding with the construction of their segment just basically this week. The Drake Motors is nearly completed, so that segment's nearly completed. The one segment that the Hendricks Apartments, that's been delayed, so there's right now a gap it's been designed, but that developer is not moving forward right now at this point in time. So that left us with the blue segments on this map, which is basically from Inwood tying into the Hendricks apartment area. And with that and with this project being completed, then with that entire corridor, we'll have an urbanized North Boulevard with that connecting trail all the way from Inwood to Keats. So that was the goal, was to, this roadway segment was getting chopped up in different pieces, and the goal was to use this project to fill in those gaps and to close that to make this a cohesive corridor upon completion. So again, looking at our PCI ratings that were completed for this corridor, you can see the blue segments were the segments that were recently constructed as part of development projects, and then the orange segments had you below the 55 PCI rating, signifying that a reconstruction was needed for these payments. Basically, again, this is very detailed and not expecting you to read it entirely, but what we're trying to do is basically take a rural section roadway. It's a collector, high volume traffic, 50-mile-an-hour road, and we're trying to get a connecting trail on the north side of the boulevard. So we're urbanizing the North Boulevard with curb and gutter, which has us putting storm sewer in, replacing a ditch, and then constructing the trail on there. So we're filling that in and doing some grading changes along that. And then putting dedicated turn lanes in as necessary at all the either commercial driveways or city streets. So this is the proposed improvements now with the plans and specifications being completed that we're ready to go out for bids. This is starting, what you're seeing is the very west end of it, connecting into Inwood Avenue. Those are basically lane configurations that are existing today, so the gray area is showing you full reclamation that we're gonna be doing to redo all those pavements. But on the north side, the pink coloring you see there is the new trail that doesn't exist today. And then that green area is boulevard that's being regraded and redone because that's getting urbanized with curb and gutter put on the north corridor. So then continuing to move east, this extends now the project down to Eagle Point Boulevard. That's where we run into the Amira project. So as it starts to, on the right-hand side of the page, you start to see it fade out. That's getting reconstructed, but it's being handled by the developer's project. So then the next segment is again being reconstructed by Amira as this summer. And then once the Amira project ends, then our project's picking that back up and again constructing the trail on the north side. And then you see we're channeling into what's existing there today with dedicated 12-foot drive lanes in each direction. And then as you see us start to approach Jade Trail, we start to expand and widen the road to create that 3-lane section because we have a lot of frequent streets and commercial driveways, and so we're trying to create a left turn lane dedication in those areas.
Question, just so on the eastbound side, we're maintaining a rural section at a certain point in time. I saw the two different
Yeah,
plates.
so when you have development on both sides, we're urbanizing both sides. When we get up against the south side where it's just up against the freeway,
Yep.
there's nothing that can be developed, so that's staying rural
Okay.
on that side. So then, as I mentioned, we get to Jade Trail, it then goes to a wider road, so you can see up against the storage facility and then the commercial buildings that are there today. That you see that dark gray as a full reconstruction because it's being widened. It's not just a reclaim in that area as we put the trail in. And then we get to the terminus point where we're getting across the existing commercial buildings that are there now and tapping into what's the west end of the Hendricks apartments that'll be there. And then this last piece is just showing some extra work we have to do as part of our project since the Hendricks project isn't going. So that's how, this is added work we had to add when they delayed so that we can tie into their project on a temporary basis until they come back and do their portion. We did look at trying to capture their piece when we saw their delaying and just try to finish it all at once. The complexities included, they were handling all the stormwater management. It would have required us getting easements from them to do their stormwater, some of their stormwater management for them. We would have had to walk through an assessment process for them that would have been different than the other parcels. So we decided the better thing is just to transition in for now and wait to see what happens there. So that's the scope of improvements, and then with that, we identify the assessable properties when we follow our special assessment practices. These are the 10 commercial properties that were identified. These are properties that directly abut and access Hudson Boulevard. The gap ones are either like the Amira development that's already building their portion of it on their own, or you have like Boulder Ponds, which was a developer that built their own road and their properties are all accessing Jade Trail. So something different going on there. So we have these 10 properties that we are able to assess for this improvement. We came up with a total estimated project cost for this at about just over 2.5 million. We're dealing with commercial property, so our assessment policy is 100% of the total project costs on a lineal footage basis. So as we walk through that, the total street frontage that's being improved, counting both sides of the road, is 8,680 lineal feet. That gave us a unit assessment of $132 per foot. So that's what our unit assessment is that we're applying. And then each property, the assessments are different based on their actual frontage. So 10 assessable properties with preliminary assessments ranging from $26,400 on the low end to $81,444 on the high end. That is after we apply the $1,4,336,000 of the state aid fund toward the improvement. So we take that off the top first before we calculate that unit assessment. That the city's contribution using the state aid funds is basically the way of speaking to that the road is serving the whole broader community, not just those properties. With that, the special assessment of revenue we would expect to collect based on this preliminary assessment roll would be $437,976. And that would leave general tax levy funds in the estimated amount of just over $700,000. So again, we create a preliminary assessment roll that's in your packet. It's also in the feasibility report and on the website, detailing each property individually and what their individual assessment is. The 10 properties total that $437,000 amount. And then with that, the findings and recommendations in the report, again, is that the street pavement services along Hudson Boulevard from Inwood to Julia are beyond their useful service life and require improvements as recommended in the report. Additional turn lane improvements are needed to accommodate the existing commercial driveway access spacing, which speaks to some of the widening that we were doing. It's recommended to urbanize the north side of Hudson Boulevard with a new concrete curb and gutter, storm sewer, and an 8-foot wide bituminous trail, trying to create that continuous connecting path from Inwood to Keats. We did do a geotechnical investigation as part of the report. We're doing a 12-inch full-depth reclamation as recommended. It'll leave us with a 10-foot ton roadway design with 4 inches of bituminous on top of that recycled base. And then full reconstruction in the areas of widening. It's recommended that we implement the stormwater management improvements necessary for the project to meet the watershed improvements, so we're minimizing what's being handled there. The stormwater improvements is some vegetated swales along some of the corridors that are existing there, and then we're also over excavating and expanding the stormwater pond from the Boulder Ponds development right next to the enterprise site is how we're handling that. So we don't have easement acquisition for the stormwater management for this based on that solution. As a designated municipal state aid street, we're recommending $1,436,000 of the current construction accounts, state aid construction account be applied toward the project. And then it's recommended that the assessments be levied in accordance with the preliminary assessment rolls provided in the report. Street assessments are payable over 15 years at a bond rate of plus 1% of the whatever it's bonded for. And the project as proposed is technically financially feasible, is necessary, cost effective, and will result in the benefit to the properties to be assessed. So with that, I will stand for questions.
Yeah, Councilmember Dragisich.
In the financing of the project, there's an amount listed that says tax levy dollars. Are those really bond proceeds?
Yeah, at this point, I don't know if it's bonds or cash or whatever the city
Okay.
has. These are collector roadways, and we haven't done a lot of them, so we had 3 of them we were bringing forward. I had meetings last fall in the beginning of these projects with then Administrator Hant, looking at whether they're being assessed or not, and wasn't sure how the rest of it was being paid for, other than bringing the state aid to the table and bringing the assessments to the table.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, hearing nothing else, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve resolution number 2024-053, receiving the feasibility report, calling hearings on improvement, approving the plans and specifications, and ordering the advertisement for bids for the Hudson Boulevard Improvement Segment A from Inwood Avenue, CASA 13 to 1,400 feet east of Jade Trail.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second on resolution 2024-053. Discussion. I'll just put in there that I think city and Jack's using funding from state aid, which we get as part of our allotment from various funds that funnel through state aid. And The road's in rough shape. It's gonna have more traffic on it, given some of the development that's going on. There are a lot of people other than just the residents that use that, or just the people that use that to get to those businesses. I think it's important that we make sure we take care of our investments in our infrastructure, obviously. And so I'm in favor of this. Councilmember Dragisich.
I would just clarify that the municipal state aid funds are from the gasoline taxes. It's a constitution, state constitution. 62% of the gas taxes go to the trunk highway fund, 29% to the county state aid highway fund, and 9% to the municipal state aid fund.
It includes a lot of other funds, whether it's from vehicle rentals, auto part sales.
Not MSA.
They all get funneled in and it all gets dispersed. Well, we can talk about it later.
Either way, it's not enough.
That sounds like a thrilling conversation.
It's not enough.
It's not enough, that's all.
It's not enough.
Yeah,
That we agree on.
sure. All right. Yes, Administrator.
Hey, question for Clarissa. How are we gonna fund that $700,000?
Hudson is part of the financing the 24A.
Okay, so that is a bond.
It's included in this bond that we just
That
talked about tonight. Yep.
Got it, thank you.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. I'll call the question. If there's no more discussion. Councilmember Beckstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember Dragisich.
Aye.
Councilmember Hearn.
Aye.
Councilmember Holtz.
Aye.
Resolution passes. Now, on to, it felt like we were so close, and then we got to get to those two agenda items that were pulled from consent. The Public Facilities Zoning District Text Amendments, Ordinance 2024-08, and Resolution 2024-049.
Yep, Mayor and Council, sorry, now you can hear me. Mayor and Council, good evening. It's been a long night, so I'll be brief. This item was part of a city-initiated amendment. Staff have, do routine review of code sections to identify amendments that are in the city's best interest. In this case, we identified several provisions in the Public Facilities District that are not helping the city in terms of implementing its guiding plans and working on various city projects. So we have suggested some revisions to the Public Facilities District. Those revisions include allowing public parks on city properties by right, and so not necessitating the city to apply for a comprehensive, or sorry, not a comprehensive plan, conditional use permit for itself to initiate a park. Removing wastewater limits that are frankly confusing and not tied to engineering standards. We already have controls in place for impervious surface, which this particular standard appears to be looking to address. Removing or modifying the parcel size maximum for public uses. Establishing lot coverage standards for properties over 20 acres. And updating an outdated reference to design standards to one that is currently in the city's design standards manual. So these are seen as changes that will kind of bring this code into kind of conformance with how things should be working at this point in time.
Yeah, so when I read this and I spoke with Mr. First about, I was a little perplexed why we were just removing any limitation of the 20 acres that was previously established for the city of Lake Elmo, and I was what I feel would be appropriate is to for the revisions to keep the maximum parcel size of 20 acres, except for the use of local, county, or state governments and independent school district uses. That just, if we're looking at ball fields, you're keeping them less than 20 acres. Your school will have to be less than 20 acres. Any city facility would be less than that. So that's That's one thing I was hoping to get in there and to clean it up so that facilities not of public use would go beyond that acreage size.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember
I just want
Backstrom.
to add a comment. I too was concerned about the removal of the 20-acre limit, and one of the questions that I had was whether or not staff had gone back and reviewed the context for that 20-acre limit, because I think that topic was debated a fair amount in the previous planning commissions, and there's a very valid reason for it to be within this code.
Okay.
And I would say also, I don't think I agree with adding in the city, state, and county, allowing more than that. All of those entities take tax dollars off the tax roll by building. And so I think with any of those, we should be, they should be going through a variance process. We shouldn't just have it open to taking whatever land. I think that's a bad practice.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I would also caution you on that, just because it's kind of discriminatory to say, well, all these other types of uses don't have to, have to comply with these requirements, but us, the city, and, these other public uses don't have to. I think I don't know what kind of line you draw there, other than
Okay.
public versus private.
All right. Councilmember Holt?
Clarifying question for staff. I mean, I know Oakland is technically then legal non-conforming, so it's well over 20 acres. And then our Jesuit site is well over 20 acres. So I'm guessing this 20 acres was put in place after both of those sites, likely this probably was put in after the code. And I'm curious, because I know, like, say, Rock Point Church is well over 20 acres, but they have it set up in multiple parcels. But from a public facility, the public facility zone is 19.2 acres. But the other ones that they own are still considered religious exempt for tax purposes, correct?
That would be my understanding. The church does own multiple parcels that are abutting each other, yeah.
And absent of them, and I know this because I used to write advisory opinions to churches on this, absent of them using a different purpose for that is not religiously affiliated, it is tax exempt already. So I guess I don't necessarily understand, if the argument is hypothetically this takes stuff off our tax rolls, in the case of stuff that's already existing, like they're already off the tax rolls, but we go through the process anyways. So in the case of Lake Elmo Elementary, well, this is a discussion point, but I just want to clarify for that. Like, they already have that. Thank you.
So, with respect to the zoning, does that impact like impervious surface areas that are allowed? Could you speak to that?
Mayor, parcels have a limit of impervious surface that's just north of 30%. And so, depending on the amount of improvements that any entity within the public facilities district want to locate on their property, they would be limited to 30, we'll call it 32, 35, or wherever their parcel size puts them. They would be limited to a certain amount of hardscape. And so naturally, organizations that need a little bit more hardscape are going to need a larger parcel.
Okay. So I'm gonna, given the council's recommendation, I would like to see the maximum parcel area remain at 20 in the district requirements in PF zoning district. So, let's see, how was that stated? So I'd make a motion to approve ordinance 2024-08 as proposed by staff with a revision to keep the maximum parcel size of 20 acres.
Mr. Mayor, I would just put the ordinance on the floor and then have a second, and then have somebody amend the ordinance. That way, if that doesn't go then you can go back to the original ordinance.
Okay.
Luckily, no one's second, so you're good.
Yeah. So, motion to approve ordinance 2024-08 as proposed by staff.
Second.
Okay.
Now go ahead and amend.
I'd like to amend the motion with a revision to keep the maximum parcel size of 20 acres. Can I get a second on that?
Second.
All right. Discussion. Any discussion? We're all concerns.
I've just got maybe a question or a comment. I'm a little bit confused as to why something as significant as this was put on the consent agenda as a housekeeping item. Seems to me that the changes that are being proposed are significant enough that, I mean, it should have gone to a workshop or been on the regular agenda. So I was just curious how it ended up on consent.
This is Clark, I was asked that question, and I thought it was a housekeeping issue. And it's probably my misunderstanding of the complexities of it, so
Okay.
I apologize, because now that I understand it better, it is a complex issue. I guess one of the questions I would have, if we do keep at 20 acres, what does that do for the elementary school at 47 acres?
Yeah, so the new proposed projects that are on parcels that are larger than 20 acres, we will have to talk about what the options are, whether that be a variance, whether that be a planned unit development. They will be requesting flexibility from the city's ordinance if they're platting on a parcel that is greater than 20 acres.
Correct.
Okay.
Will that be the same then? Because I know Oakland will, they're planning to expand for the students that will be there, whether we do anything or not. Would they then, because the parcel is already well over 20 and they're technically legal non-conforming at this point, would that then necessitate that because they're looking for a change?
So they're an existing use on a parcel. We would have to look into that, I think, in a little bit more detail as staff to figure out if that would be an intensification of that particular issue. I would note to you that with Oakland Middle School, they own 2 parcels that their site kind of spans across. And so it would preclude combining those 2 parcels. They do have a track and, track and field facilities on the western parcel on that site. So we would unfortunately not be able to combine to create one parcel.
But the main one's 25.
Yeah,
Correct. The main one
25
is over, correct. Yep.
So is it my understanding that we have a legal non-conforming, is it a conditional use permit, that as long as it's continued to be used in that manner, it can continue to be used in that manner as a legal non-conforming, as long as it's...
Right. The school, the middle school project would intensify the use of a school, but the parcel would not be getting any larger or smaller.
Yeah.
So I think I'd want to kind of work with staff to figure out if they need a variance in the first place, or if a variance might be warranted if they do.
Okay. All right. You feel like your question was answered, Councilmember Beckstrom?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Yep. All right, I'm gonna call the question for the amended motion. Councilmember Beckstrom?
Aye.
Councilmember Dragisich?
Aye.
Councilmember Holtz?
Nay.
Councilmember Hearn?
Aye.
I am an aye as well. The motion passes 4-1. Let's see, the next one is it just, is it,
That was just for the amendment.
Yep.
oh, that was for the amendment.
Now
Okay,
you're back to the main motion.
back to the
and
main
amendment.
motion. All right,
As amended.
as amended. Councilmember Beckstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember Dragisich,
Aye.
Councilmember Holtz,
Aye.
Councilmember Hearn,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. So the overall amended motion is approved. Next item was approved purchase of a vac truck, and just for all.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
you got to approve the resolution approving the summary publication.
Good Lord,
Then we'll be done.
help me. I am so sorry. All right, can somebody help me out with that?
Move to adopt Resolution 2024-049, approving the summary publication of ordinance 2024-08.
Support.
All right, since it's a publication, I'm just gonna call the question. Councilmember Beckstrom,
Aye.
Councilmember Dragisich.
Aye.
Councilmember Holtz.
Aye.
Councilmember Hearn.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Motion passes 5-0. The approval of the purchase of the vac/jet truck struck me as a considerable increase in budget from what was in the CIP for this year. I have talked with Public Works Director Marty Powers on this, and just felt like there should be a little more transparency on how the decision came about to how this turns out to be a good return on investment value for the city. And so with that, I'll ask Director Powers to address that.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Currently, Public Works uses a 18-year-old vac trailer, which has served its purpose in years past, but in the last 5-6 years, we're finding that it not only is it costing some considerable maintenance, but it just doesn't have the capabilities that we need. We're required by League of Municipalities to jet a third of the city's sanitary each year. This is the vac trailer, something that can't do. We can't vac out our lift stations at 30 feet deep. I can go into more detail if needed, but just the limitations that the trailer does. We're a growing city that needs to maintain its storm sewer and do inspections. We have sumps, et cetera. We budgeted $300,000 over the last 5 years. I've been kind of planning for this truck with the intent that we could probably get by with a used machine. Knowing now what we're really up against and how much we're using this, when we came to last year, there were several vehicles out there that would have interested us. They're all gone. Nothing is out there at this point. I've even been looking nationwide, and I'm just not finding something that we would really want to bring back. You start to get to a 12-year-old unit, and everything needs to be replaced on blowers, pumps. It's a high wear item. $300,000 is what we kind of budgeted for this year, and not finding anything to bring home. We started looking at other options. Do we look at a demo unit, which we could save a little bit of money on? In that, do we, talking to Finance Director Hadler and Administrator, we looked at $300,000. Do we invest this year and then maybe spend another $300 in January? That was one option this one dealer was willing to do, but he then wanted to continue to rent that unit out and bring it to shows as demos and such. The first rental was for over a month at St. Paul for that unit. So not something we're super excited about. You just don't know what kind of condition it's going to come back in. So that was one option. And then we started looking at building a brand new truck for 2025, which could then be paid for in 2025. We wouldn't have that investment in 2024. A truck with somewhat comparable dollar value is not necessarily comparable with equipment on it. The blower's smaller, the debris body's smaller. They're just a number of amenities that I picked four staff members, and we reviewed the trucks and went through demos and such, and they all picked this demo unit, which is available now. It's a 2023 chassis, but 2024 build. It has 800 miles on it and less than 3 or 4 hours on the unit itself. He has not rented it yet and has only demoed it with like 4 or 5 cities and in one show. We spend right now $15,000 to $20,000 just to jet. Our sanitary sewer, that third that we talked about each year, we contract the rest out, which we'll spend kind of depending on our situations and needs, a total of up to $60,000 per year. Over 10 years, it's $600,000. This unit is a 12-year machine, so we would easily see our money back out of that. The time sensitivity has become a bigger issue just in the last 2 years, where we've had a pretty good sized backup, actually 2, and we've had lift stations that have went down and we needed to bypass, so we're trucking. Now, rental, we've struggled the last 2 years. They won't commit anymore if we're even gonna get a rental unit. It's kind of fly by night, and they'll let us know when they have something available. Last year, we were able to get a unit kind of last minute. It was towards the fall. This year, they feel we should have access to a rental unit, but right now, we're not even on the schedule. When we've had some emergency situations, we had 3 force main breaks last 2 years. Trying to scramble and find contractors that could respond in a sensitive time manner there. I was calling 5 to 6 different contractors trying to get somebody there within 2 hours. That lift station fills up in 30 minutes. So, yeah, time sensitivity has become a bigger issue than just calling a contractor and hoping somebody's gonna show up. They're busy, you know, it's become a challenge.
Is this machine also used to, I mean, part of that's the MS4 permit that we need to comply with, right?
Yes, and that's become really big in just the last couple of years on, you know, we have to clean all of our sumps, and we're inspecting all flared ends, and that's something we'll definitely be using throughout, which we have been using when we're renting the truck already.
In here, you mentioned water funding. Clarissa, is that funding that comes from, not necessarily from water fee, but the maintenance fee that we see on our water bills? Is that part of that funding that would be used for something like this?
Well, it's coming from water revenue.
Right.
Not on.
But I
It's coming
think when we
from
get our
water
bill, right,
revenues.
there's water usage, and then there's the maintenance fee on there as well that everybody pays. And
I don't know that we would necessarily separate those out as far as
Okay.
what dollars go where, but
Okay,
yeah.
but you've determined that the fund is healthy and able to
Absolutely. The
manage
utility
that?
funds have a total of cash and investments right now of around $18 million.
Okay.
To me, the difference between, you know, the whole half and half purchase, we're really not, you know, you're using cash now versus cash 6 months from now. You're losing out on 6 months worth of interest.
Okay.
Given all the things, I guess it doesn't matter so
We
much to me.
also- We also looked into leases and stuff like that, and the extra money you're gonna pay is, you know, we're money ahead just to pay the cash, being that we have it now. So,
We would also be coming back to council with a budget amendment to adjust this budget as approved by the city council. So future audits would look back, and it wouldn't be a negative to say, hey, you ran over your budget $300,000 on this. It's one of the things I've done in other government agencies is if we have an extraordinary expense or even an extraordinary revenue that comes in, we do budget amendments based on X amount of percentage in a certain department or X amount of percentage over the entire budget. And that's not a practice that the city has had recently, and that's one of the things I'll see if I have time to get to this summer here, so.
Yes?
Actually, clerk, we added language to this motion to incorporate
did?
that budget amendment. Yes.
Okay.
But thank you for the explanation.
There you go.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the purchase of a Demovac jet combo unit from Flexible Pipe Tool and Equipment for an amount not to exceed $560,000 and amend water, sewer, and stormwater budgets accordingly for the additional amount of $260,000 of expense.
Support.
Okay, discussion. Councilmember Holtz.
I appreciate this was a discussion and that you pulled this. I also think due diligence was done, and it's the cost of business. It's where we're at. So I feel confident based upon information from finance that obviously the utility fund is healthy enough to handle this, so I fully support.
Yeah, I wanted to pull it just to have the transparency that are people, if they're watching, they understand that there's thought and there's decision-making behind this. I know that in the past, the size of Lake Elmo probably hadn't needed a piece of equipment like this, but it's commonplace for cities of our size and larger that need this to, in part, comply with MS4 requirements around the state, and also to be able to react to force main breaks, as Marty indicated, in a timely manner for our residents. And it's important to be able to take care of those situations. So I intend to fully support that, and I had a great discussion with Marty previously on this. So he knew that I would pull it. And yes, Councilmember Dragisich.
One comment I would add is that the use of this equipment in a well-run sanitary sewer system, you're cleaning those lines every 3 to 5 years to avoid backups into people's basements. And we have sections of sewer that I'm sure accumulate quite a bit of sand and other debris. How it gets in there sometimes is amazing, but the dividends that we'll pay in terms of limiting back up into basements is well worth the additional expenditure, particularly since we have a large fund balance that we can use.
Any other discussion? All right. Call the question. Councilmember Beckstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember Dragisich.
Aye.
Councilmember Holtz.
Aye.
Councilmember Hearn.
Aye.
Or an aye as well. Motion passes.
Motion to dispose of the 2006 Ditch Witch vac trailer via auction.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to put the 2006 Ditch Witch vac trailer up on auction. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. Councilmember Beckstrom.
Aye.
Councilmember Dragisich.
Aye.
Councilmember Holtz.
Aye.
Councilmember Hearn.
Aye.
Or an aye as well. Motion passes. Thank you, everyone, for taking that time there. We'll move on to H, which is council reports. Councilmember Dragisich.
Because I'm kind of a nerd, I spent some time putting together some analysis about our bonding, current outstanding debt in the city, and some thoughts on, as the 224 bond comes up, what our future looks like based on the financial projections done by city staff. And it's really an informational piece for you. And I get to the end, I come up with, perhaps we might want to take a look at having staff develop and review our bond debt management plan. It's just something we should give some thought to. I'm not recommending it tonight, but I thought it was a good piece of information as we look at our finances going forward and may provide some additional guidance.
Thank you. Councilmember Holtz.
The White House Council on Environmental Quality came to Oakdale and Lake Elmo yesterday, and I got an invite based upon being on the 3M Summit Work Group. They invited the mayor. They asked that our engineer come out as well. They asked us no questions. But it was a very good opportunity for those who have far more impact than we can at the local level to know about what is happening with PFAS, what the solutions have been, what the continued problems will be in terms of the need for, especially for additional improvements and the need for additional opportunities within the marketplace to attain the items that we need. And I think that's going to be the big takeaway for Chair Mallory, is letting them know that there needs to be definitely an attention call within industry that Lake Elmo is the bird and the canary. That is not the right word.
Canary in the coal mine.
That sounds way better. And use this as an example so they truly understand the scale and scope of what this impact truly is. So definitely appreciate that they came out to see our community and to witness what is happening.
Yeah, so I attended that at the Lake Elmo Park Reserve, and then again at the Talon Park, where they're, what do you call it, PFAS extraction via foaming. It's kind of interesting. I hadn't seen that before, but yeah, it was good. Councilmember Hearn?
Nothing to add.
Hey, staff reports.
Two things. One, City Council and staff will be switching over your email to the .gov domain probably by the end of next week. You will not notice anything in this case. Your outgoing mail will just be defaulted to the .gov. Your incoming mail will continue to come to the .org or the .gov. And over the next year or two, or however long you want to have it, until you basically would 86 the .org, until all your emails, your logins, and all those things have changed over. Most agencies take at least a year, sometimes 2 years, to make sure that annualized communications and permits and other things keep coming to them. In addition, we have pointed the website to go to .gov and .org simultaneously, so that will start populating the web. And again, as residents and citizens and governments get used to this, the .gov will just slowly become the dominant feature within your organization. So that will be coming. I'll flip that switch sometime next week. I've been doing it for a couple weeks myself, just to test it out. Miss Miller is starting off that way. Her business cards will only have .gov on it. As staff or council get new cards in the next year, 2 years, they'll just put .gov on it too. And then secondly, next week on the 14th at 6:30 for the City Council workshop, we are having the MPCA come out and then the AMCON, the people who run the SAF system out at Tablin Park, are going to come. In addition, I'm also inviting the DNR to come to talk, and we're going to have some discussions about water and PFAS and grants and just kind of a general overall workshop discussion. No discussion, no decisions, but this will be an opportunity to ask the MPCA directly what you have questions about.
Councilmember Beckstrom, I'm so sorry. You're not up here on the, I looked at you, I'm like, I forgot to ask Councilmember Beckstrom. You have any reports tonight?
I don't, no worries.
All right, thanks. Julie?
No report, thank you.
Nathan?
No report.
No report.
Jason? All right. Clarissa?
Just one more reminder to all the residents to sign up for the new utility billing payment portal, paya.com.
Any chance we've been able to get the water meeting readings on that application?
Not yet. They are working on that part of the project. They've got a pretty decent list from us as far as improvements.
Put your thumb on them.
I will do my best.
Director Powers?
Just some park updates. Everybody seems to be a little interested in some of the changes. Dog park, thanks to Public Works staff, is completed. Adam's going to be planning a grand opening end of May, beginning of June. We have had fantastic comments about it. Everybody that's there is super happy and positive. Just wanted to share that with you. Tablin Park parking lot extension will be paved yet this week. So that will look different. The Reed Ballpark baseball field, if you haven't been out there, it looks way different. We've got a little bit of infield work yet to do and a little more red ball to haul in. So, but definitely looks different, and we've had good comments about that. Pickleball courts at Tablin and Pebble are both being painted in between the rains. So we've been told by the end of next week It may be open, so let's go into May.
Okay. Chief?
No report from fire.
Jack?
No report.
Sarah?
We should be getting the administrative law judge decision in the DNR water appropriation permit case by Friday, so look for that.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for their time. Thank you for all the residents that showed up this evening. And we'll adjourn the meeting here at 10:33.